And straight away, Jupiter not going to do too many weird things here, just going to stay back on the regular 3-3. And for Global Esports, always want to start out on the fire just to see, okay, are they running Orion? Well, they're not, so I wonder if Global Esports are going to reset.
It's kind of looking like they might all sleep on Little Rax. If they do choose to reset, it's certainly not going to be with Little Rax in tow. Samurai D, we're going to survive that one, so Global Esports going to have to take a breather while they wait for respawn.
And I'll tell you when you want to run this Global Esports lineup, you want to run it when there's a Ryan on the other side in a 3-3. You want to run it when there's a bunker. So far, none of those things are happening, but Global Esports can maybe still break through and find some picks.
Nice counter-attack there onto Xenofly. Kenma Hororo did take some big chunks while it was hacked, but that's a huge pick onto Azure. That really slows up Global Esports more than anything else, but they decide, well, if we're going to lose it anyway, we might as well just force our way in, see if it pays off. They have some ultimates to back it up. So having picked off Samurai D, they're actually able to get themselves onto the point. Question is, will they be able to hold it? Jupiter coming back in with a nano boost now in Global Esports. Biotic grenade onto Satchok. He's going to be in a lot of trouble if he sticks around much longer.
I'll tell you what, that's the third favorite member for you to really put your nano boost onto this scenario because Samurai D was low, and then you also had Kenma Hororo. Those are the members you want. I'm kidding now, just got to finish the fight.
Yeah, Global Esports finding their way back in there. They weren't ever really fully forced off. I think Jupiter maybe felt a bit safer than they actually were. Didn't notice Bubble Kitty. Fly by night. Stealthy.
And this is where you can see, if you're Jupiter right now, maybe try and force a couple of extra ultimates. See what Global Esports want to do for this approach onto B. Notably, I think Bubble Kitty here can be a member to swap because he's already used his barrage. He doesn't need to keep the fire anymore. The other 4 ultimates you do want to push in with.
They've got a fair gamut of them, Jupiter. A little ways off some of their defensive tools. Also, one defensive tool short, as it were, because they aren't running that Zenyatta.
And nothing to really defend against the EMP. Like you mentioned, no Zenyatta, but also no sound barrier yet.
Oh, again, Little Rax takes an early death. This is with Global actually committing this time around, so Azure now down. And just off the back of that, Global Esports are going to have trouble really staying in this one. Even when Xeon Flux Funny getting up with this firing line, he's going to get forced off very quickly. We'll make it to that health pack, but Global Esports are in retreat here.
Now, the sticking power is unusually high for Global Esports right now. You see this brittle lineup with low HP bars, you kind of expect members to go down a lot quicker, but Xeon Flux survives. I mean, Lil Rex did go down, but other members lived, and Xenofly survived as well. Now they get to go back and EMP in hand, but at least sound barrier available for clear now.
That's the thing, until the EMP fails, Global Esports don't really feel the need to swap, and there it goes. It only gets Tayo, though, and he's going to be rescued by a sound barrier, so now Global Esports, they also lost Xeon Flux on the approach, really not where they thought they would be after that EMP was going to come out, so gonna have to figure out what they want to do in this fight. Might be able to get the DMEC on Kenma Hororo here. He was hacked, so he cannot self-destruct, but at best this is a trade-off with Satchok, and now it's even worse than that because Bubble Kitty got dropped. So Jupiter, again, just kind of sitting pretty on this point. Nothing Global Esports throw at them seems to be connecting.
And Global Esports really took a risk there, and now they're going to have to swap regardless because they're at a stage where they use all their ultimates, didn't work out for them. The actual really bad part about this is if they had committed fully on that first attempt onto B, lost that fight, and then swapped, they'd be in a better place. Because they didn't really lose that first fight, they still had ultimates, they actually extended this composition for an extra fight, which kind of loses extra time for them, and now they've reset anyway at a huge deficit.
This is interesting. Jupiter, they do still have a Primal Rage. After that, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually swap to a Reinhardt of their own. They should be able to preserve some sort of macro lead here.
And I think both Nano and Primal Rage get used here because Savagod notably probably does want to go into Zen.
Yeah, certainly. And now the fight breaking out. Global Esports, they know that this is just a rebuilding fight. They're happy to get some ultimates out. Self-destruct does pick up one and tie off to the side, finds Satchok. So the groundwork has been done. That's going to be one with the Primal Rage. Good sleep on Xenofly. Means they should be able to pick him off when they decide the time is right. Actually, he's going to be able to maybe give them the slip here. Take a dive. We'll be able to get out, but that's really it for Global Esports.
And there's two things you want to be looking at here. What ultimates are gone from Jupiter and what ultimates are being charged by Global Esports. When you look at the GE side, it's realistically just a Transcendence coming up online. Everything else is still really far away. Off of one fight, 40-ish kind of percent for Satchok, 26 for Lil Rex. You kind of want to see both those scores being bumped up by at least another 20 for this next fight to really start looking good, because this is probably just going to be another lost dry fight for them.
So Samurai D does make the swap onto Reinhardt, and Satchok leads him in ult charge, but the nano boost goes on to Samurai D. He's going to be able to recharge that ultimate pretty easily. A 1-for-1 right now with the Reinhardts, but there you look at that. He's now surpassed Satchok. That is what the nano boost can do for you in that situation. So Jupiter not even behind in that regard here as they choose to commit that Earth Shatter. Not the biggest, but it's enough to help tip those scales even further as the pressure continues to mount on these tanks. Nice stun on Satchok as well. They'll be able to finish him off thanks to Tayo throwing in the grab as well. Quite a lot of commitment there for Jupiter, but again, Samurai D nearly back up at another shatter.
And I think that ends up being fairly worth it for Jupiter, who now kind of get the stagger as well onto Xenofly. Great sleep dart on him. And Satchok, if he kind of lives for maybe a second longer, he gets himself that Earth Shatter available. That's not... Actually, I think he kind of messed up because if he charges him towards the spawn, you get to extend the stagger longer.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, actually.
You know what? I will criticize that.
Yep. Yep, I've got a fault for that.
That's, you know, I got a checkboard out here. Just going to make it a little mark on that. It's -1 point.
It's reminding me of my driving.
It's got a lot of points, but, you know, that's one less.
Yeah, well, we didn't quite parallel park it there, buddy. It's 2 degrees off parallel.
Where was indication, man? It's not okay.
Yeah.
What is okay, though, let me say what is okay is Little Rex and Satchok's very much looking like they have ultimates available here. Double support ultimates coming online as well. Global Esports finally are about to get their fight underway. 3 fights in a row now, 3 fights deep on this 3-3. Less than 2 minutes, a lot of time's gone, but they got to make it work.
Thing is, it's got to be big, otherwise it doesn't really do much for them with that closer respawn. Charging on Satchok, no one down just yet, except Samurai D now finds himself in too deep. Global Esports ahead in this one. Now they find Tayo as well. Self-destruct from Kenma Hororo. It's kind of lobbed into the ether there. Not going to find anyone. Bubble Kitty low, but not going to die. And now Transcendence from Xeon Flux. This is where Global Esports have the tools to leverage, and this is looking pretty good for them. Jupiter still going to be waiting on maybe a full rack of respawns here. Might not even get it out in time.
Samgot's got to go.
Yeah, they've just got to commit onto the point with that Transcendence. Try and hope that the other members get there in time before these ones die. They're not going to be able to get kills in that time either because of that sound barrier. Oh, Tayo grab, Eden instantly dropped as well. Little Rex and Xenofly just playing tag team on him with the 1-2 combo. And with that, Jupiter find themselves with no resistance left in them. Global Esports get themselves the cap.
And that has got to be the worst time for that grab to be Eden as well. Xenofly has just been able to do this so many times. It's 3 maps. 3 maps in a row now. We saw it on Lijiang. We saw it in King's Row. We now see it on Hanamura. And every single time the grab is gone, it's a big loss for Jupiter, unfortunately. And this is where now, for Global Esports, they really get to pull themselves ahead. Look, they probably have a scenario where they are very likely to cap regardless, but this is a decent payout for what was a rather unfortunate start for B.
Oh, man. So that's what happened to Tayo at the start of that one. Just, I mean, that's so tight there. Doesn't quite go off, and the extra bit of momentum bumps Tayo back. I think actually he also right-clicked, which also bumps the Zarya a little bit more. If it hadn't been for that, he may have been able to stay on there.
I think he would have been in no man's land anyway. It was
he would
almost
die eventually. It's just how quickly it happened.
Well, it's not even if he doesn't die, he's not helping his team.
Yeah.
I think there's no good coming out from that regardless for Tayo, unfortunately. But we look at now Global Esports finishing 1:09 on the clock. Let's remind ourselves here that they've walked onto B with more than 5 minutes, and they spent 3 plus maybe even 4 minutes for that, kind of swapping off their initial DPS comp. It took them 3 fights in a row on the 3-3 to actually start building up some usable ultimates to win with. Once that happened, they actually won, because if they didn't win that fight, that 3rd fight on the 3-3, they probably don't cap the point.
1:09 is okay as well. Certainly better than capping in overtime. Now Global Esports on the defense, running at Baptiste bunker.
Yep.
So
This
Jupiter.
is the meta now, fellas.
Looks
I
like
warned people last week, the Bastion's here to stay. The only really interesting thing here is Xenofly defensively is going to have the main ward as well to maybe just kind of disrupt the push forward. But I think Jupiter are going to swap to mainly spam comps here. Hanzo would be the ideal pick for Tayo here if they really wanted to double down on that, which they should. And Global Esports, this is where Xenofly on the Mei probably isn't as good, but Jupiter are actually going to go for dive.
Yeah, and they want Tayo on that Sombra as well. Kenma Hororo was just on it to scout. So this is quite a slow start here for Jupiter.
And it's going to be slower because Bunker typically is going to force a lot of time out. They're going to lose 2 minutes plus, even if Jupiter actually cap out A. So that's something that Global Esports can always rely on. But Global Esports, once they lose A, assuming they do, they're going to have to swap into 3-3 again. Or they can swap on, they can stay on Bunker if they really want to as a risk. But see how this push goes.
It's the first rotation. They dive right in, lose Claire in the process, but that extra few seconds that get bought by the invulnerability there. Now, Global Esports, it's not really going Jupiter's way, so Global Esports might just be able to sort of fall back and rally on this one.
So here's the thing. If Jupiter can find some picks, which they're currently not doing, they might still get one. Little Rex maybe implicated here.
Yeah, but Bubble Kitty's still able to be largely set up, and this time it's in a position where there's not a whole lot they can do about it.
So here's what I was going to say. If they do lose members, first of all, there's no taxi with the Lucio back. They're going to have to wait a long time, Global Esports that is, to reinforce properly, and Jupiter can find openings there. The second win condition here is to get this EMP up, but it's taken two-ish, now 1.5 fights, and 53, 54%. Not ideal. This is going to be an interesting nade angle. Probably is going to land this one. Probably got a bit of a note from this one when you watched Overwatch League. Same angle being used to directly drop it on top of Bubble Kitty.
Funnily enough, because of that Empress site, they actually know he's there.
Yeah, but there's no Diva, so they can't eat it. So they're probably going to have to just shift out of the way, and they do.
Yeah, I mean, at least they are able to do that. Now Amakin already down as he makes the approach. Global Esports not even breaking a sweat on this one.
They got to lose. Jupiter have to get something. Jupiter got to get at least a couple of members, and
They're not even getting ultimates out of Global Esports.
that's the really tough part, because you at least want to see things like, you know, maybe the Nano comes through, you want to get rid of the tank mode, you want to get rid of so much, and I mean, the only ultimate they are getting rid of is the Infrasight, but I think Global Esports are all too happy to use that anyway, and now this is where Mei, I think, gets extra value, because if you want to dive onto Mei, guess what, the Blizzard comes through, and this is why you want to be playing the poke comp instead of the dive comp, because the dive comp is worse because the Mei exists.
This is a bit of a pickle that Jupiter have found themselves in. Global Esports kind of holding on to all the marbles here. Just going to go ahead and throw down the damage boost off to the side, get that one onto Amakin, who's going to be pulling out the blade.
Taking his time.
Yeah, not really getting much. Nice sleep, though, onto the Bastion, who did receive a nano boost as well. So that's a lot of value, potential value, rather, not gained. But even then, as soon as he gets back into the fray, Bubble Kitty starts laying on the pain, and Jupiter are definitely feeling it. EMP is there. They're trying to follow up. They might just be able to. Kenma Hororo super low.
They got to get Bubble
Wasn't
Kitty.
quite blocking in the right direction, but just barely got Bubble Kitty in the nick of time, as he always slept as well. So Jupiter, man, that was really, really down to the wire.
And I think that nearly didn't go well for them. You see the Ant Box come down as well, and for Global Esports just putting out a ton of damage. Amakin's Blade Base got nothing done, but Tayo finally gets EMP up like 3 fights later or something. Both teams very likely swap now, except for Global Esports. If I see a Symmetra, I'm assuming they're going to try and teleport themselves up to high ground, which is exactly what's happening.
Well, yes, for the Bastion, but then after that, they want to have a little racks.
I actually think Global Esports could have swapped onto 3-3 here as well.
Yeah.
No risk, because they know Jupiter has to as well. So they're going to go in basically even ground, but they are going to take a bit of a risk to see how this goes.
They're looking to try and isolate someone, but stealth pun there, isolate, but the wall doesn't really do it, so Jupiter are able to make the rotation here.
And this is where they kind of want to have some point pressure, but the difficult thing for Jupiter is they can't actually aggress on top of the bunker in any notable way outside of a Primal Rage or, you know, the bomb going up, which Kenma Hororo does have and will need to use here.
Yeah, just going to go fly up first, try and get some harass, maybe displace some members. Samurai D, though, super, super low, and Kenma Hororo as well going to take some pain. Comes back up, that's going to be the self-destruct laid up there. Largely blocked out thanks to Satchok, but they've got the Bastion on the ground. He's more than happy to, though, because now he's gone tank form. So, damage coming in, absolutely blasts apart Jupiter. So, cute moves there, but really all it results in is 1 minute lost for Jupiter.
And I think that could have gone better because they have a scenario where, okay, step one, get the Bastion either down, that is to say, dead in spawn, or on the floor. And they got him on the floor. They got him down on the ground, but then the tank form comes through. He's still super effective. Jupiter is still unable to really grist on. Tyro's now going to make the swap onto Sombra. Lorax has been there for a while. EMP is available for him. And Global Esports still in position to continue holding on this bunker, and Jupiter are going to go onto a fresh dive and look back on A, how long it took them on A to get this dive going. They don't really have the same time on B.
Even then, the Bastion on the ground was really just on that other catwalk, so it was, I mean, more accessible to be sure, but that's a really huge pick as well. It's a bit of a counter trade, though. Jupiter, this is interesting. This is a lot of commitment for Global Esports, and Jupiter kind of go, well, all right, we'll match that, but Kenma Hororo ends up demech, so maybe not what they were looking for there.
I think Jupiter just walk away from this one.
Yeah.
You see the amplification matrix is gone now.
And
the other thing,
still have so much to use.
The other thing you need to look at is Sabagon needs to be a huge playmaker here, because anytime the shield is not available and there's no Diva here, so there's no defense matrix. You have to land either a bio or both a bio and a sleep on top of Bubble Kitty, who's playing the Sebastian Kill. It's actually pivotal. That's one of the ways you can really break this bunker apart, but
Well,
easier said than done.
They got part one there, but I mean, it's hard to get the second part when you're still actually just winding up for the push. And Jupiter are really losing a lot of time here.
I think Jupiter got about 2 pushes left.
Just getting aggressive in. There's the EMP to counter it out, though. I mean, how many times can they do this? Just charge on in, throw out all their abilities, find that they haven't killed anyone, and then Global Esports just throw out their ultimates and win.
But this is important. This is important for Jupiter because you have to get rid of 2 of these big ultimates straight away, which is the EMP and also the Blizzard. Once those are gone, Jupiter now have a much better chance. And timing-wise, you can start to see now EMP finally available to Tayo. Not quite at Nanoblade yet either. Personally, not a huge fan of Nanoblade regardless because I don't think you can get a lot done with that blade as we've seen in the past, especially versus something like a Global Esports squad running about teams with an immortality field. This is now kind of make or break. This is that 2 out of 2 fights for Jupiter where if they lose this one, they're probably not going to be able to cap.
Real cute there, though, because they didn't actually need... they'd already used the EMP. They were able to swap over onto the Symmetra, get back on this high ground, but Lil Rex takes a bio and aid, and Xenofly takes a sleep, so... God, couldn't decide between sleep and nap there.
I don't think you can really wait for this blade. I
Yeah.
think what you want to do is EMP in, Anakin will get the blade as he's dashing through the members, and
got
then
that
that's when
time.
you want to commit. If you wait too long, Global Esports going to work towards their own ults and more positioning and more spam damage, and
It does feel like they are overly relying on that Nano Blade, and Amakin's going to have a hard time getting up there, but they're still able to find Bubble Kitty. That's big. Now Xeon Flux as well. Global Esports, they will have some ultimates to bring to bear as the respawns come in, but this first part has definitely not gone their way. Lil Rex able to get out. Has a very late blade to come in, but it's going to be enough to help finish off the rest of these members. Maybe should have held on to it, though, for respawners who are due out of the gates about now.
this is where now Jupiter need to continue getting these kills in their self-destruct. Still available for Kimba Roro.
This is still very volatile, though, could easily fall the way of Global Esports. Jupiter, especially losing...
just in time.
Barely ending that hack there. Self-destruct going to be thrown out. Doesn't get any kills itself, but he remixed. But now EMP, Samurai D in a lot of trouble. Xenofly gets picked, though. They're still in this one. That's a 2-for-1 in favor of Jupiter. Kenma Hororo staying alive is so critical. He's their only tank presence on the point, and they're cleaning up the rest of these kills. They do cap it in overtime. Global Esports, though, were 9 seconds over the 1-minute mark, which means... if I'm not mistaken, Jupiter will not actually get a chance to attack here.
That's tough. Really tough pill to swallow. And yep, I think it appears that you're right. It's going to be a 109 attack. Jupiter have to pray and wish and really work for a draw here. And you have to look back at this map. And I think Jupiter made some very clear compositional errors. On point A, they chose not to play a poke Pharah plus Hanzo composition versus a bunker. Chose to play dive into a Mei instead. Big mistake on B. They attempted to play a 3-3 push into a bunker instead of just going back on the dive straight away instead, which ended up working. And if those 2 things factored in, if they both work, which it kind of did anyway, they would have kept with some time left and we wouldn't be in a draw scenario. My fear now is Global Esports being here with a 109. A is very capable for an attacking team even in this time. Jupiter is super at risk of losing this map.
And even then, best case scenario for them is a draw. It's not too bad, though. You just take the map as a write-off and move on to the next one, which is about as good as you can get when you consider that you did struggle in this one if you're Jupiter. So, their defense, they're going to go ahead and do what Global Esports just did to them. So now we get to see if Global Esports can beat their own bunker.
And they probably will if they play this comp correctly. Bubble Kitty on Pharah, Xeon Flux on the Hanzo. Lil Rex and Xenofly are going to be playing flankers, and their job is to pressure the point as well as Satchok. And what you eventually want to see is, in this 109, the EMP come through, or the Dragon Strike, or the Barrage. Either one of those ultimates can end this bunker.
Global Esports making a couple of changes up here. They decide they want the Zenyatta.
Transcendence is going to give them a little bit better staying power. And I guess if they really want to brawl things out, it would help as well. Discord is obviously always a good move.
Oh, no.
The bunker's already done.
Totally exposed there, and Claire even going for the res. That's about as bad as it can get on that defense. For Bubble Kitty to get that much work done, really just on his own, that's going to be the cap out for Global Esports. Now 2-1 up in the series. They bring it to match points, and they find themselves just 1 map away from punching their ticket to a semi.
That was all too easy for Global Esports. And we talk about King's Row, and we look at the time bank scenario, and it looked like, I'm not going to say easy, but it was at least very comfortable for Jupiter. This is the complete opposite. This is now a very comfortable win, not just on King's Row, to be fair, across the entirety of Hanamura for GE. And it was also their map pick. You can start wondering, okay, well, they have obviously very much practiced this map. They have obviously very much had a lot in their pockets in preparation. They understood the comps very well. They understood the counters very well, and the execution, flawless. I mean, they had the flankers on the point, draw the attention of the Bastion to the point. Suddenly, the Fire picks up both your important members.
Now you start to look at whether or not Jupiter are going to have that same expertise, as it were, on whatever map they choose to take it to next for Escort. Look, there is the world where these two teams just swap back and forth until we get to that 5th map, where when you consider how close the first control was, maybe that's still a toss-up, even though it's Global Esports' pick. This is just, this is just some of the highlights, as it were. That's
by the way,
ranks popping off.
I want to speak to that comp as well. Just we got a little bit of a glimpse there. It's basically a Batiste bunker, but the kind of flex picks there is one, a Widowmaker, and B, they have the Meg. So the Widowmaker is designed so that if you want to play poke, our Widow beats your Hanzo and also your Pharmacy combo. If you want to play goats or you want to play some tank-based composition or dive, that's what the Meg's there for. So they've kind of covered the bases in terms of what will counter this bunker. We have an appropriate pick to deal with either of those options.
It did start to feel like Jupiter were maybe a little bit lost as to what to do as well. I mean, they eventually started to find some solutions, but you dare say those solutions came in quite late. And also, I mean, there's the wider sense. Look, they pulled out that same composition on the defense. They wouldn't have done that if it's just because they saw Global Esports do it. They've obviously practiced it themselves, but the fact that they didn't know how necessarily to counter it as well, it's maybe a little bit alarming. There's maybe been some misreads of the meta, or maybe just not enough preparation in certain parts there.
You only had 1 week, I guess.
Yeah, it's concerning, I would say.
I think it comes down to, and this is what I enjoy about this level of play with this kind of time restriction as well, as every single team has had 1 week to prepare. Unless you're a semi-final team, you get 2 weeks and you get to watch this match. So go Talon and Nova.
You get a week and a day.
For this particular matchup and for the other quarterfinal as well, it comes down to so much of preparation, and this is a clear example of one team having specifically prepared something on a very specific map, and the other team having not done so.
And perhaps we can look at this through a different lens, whereby we acknowledge that that is the case, and it actually still came down to a position of being, if not winnable, then at least drawable. And you also actually look at the other part of that. 9 extra seconds on Jupiter's defense would have actually allowed them a shot in Time Bank, rather than just best case scenario as a draw. So on the whole, it still comes down relatively close, all things considered, which is in a way impactful if this is meant to be the ace up the sleeve for Global Esports, but at the same time, it actually paid off. They are the ones at match point now.
Yeah, and I think, we'll have to see if that continues or if Jupiter can maybe bounce back to full stat map 5, because we are going to head into Escort pretty soon, so let's go ahead and find out what that's all about.
Welcome to Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is Escort. 2 teams face off as either defenders or attackers. This is the payload. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to escort the payload along a set path containing 3 checkpoints. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby at the same time. To get moving again, attackers must clear away the defenders by force. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. If even one attacker is near the payload when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared off the payload or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
So as you've seen right now, and Escort, by the way, is going to be on Watchpoint Gibraltar, but note that Global Esports picked the first map, Lijiang, as a higher seed. Kings Row picked by Jupiter, Hanamura picked by Global Esports, which means as Jupiter picks this point on Watchpoint Gibraltar, so far everyone who has chosen the map has gone on to win that map.
Certainly a trend emerging. And again, this is why we say, look, if it carries on this way, we go to that map 5, and that's where we enter some interesting territory.
Hopefully it's Oasis.
Yeah, too poetic. I mean, at this point, maybe, right? I mean, certainly Jupiter are in a position where they need to take it to map 5 if they actually want to have a hope, and then they need to buck that trend of the map picker being the one that wins it as well. So a lot kind of on the line here for Watchpoint Gibraltar.
And I actually think Control is the most 50-50 out of these type of maps as well, because
Certainly Lijiang Tower almost was.
Well, that's the thing, because those are the real type of maps where you don't think either team is particularly favored. There's no real like ace up the sleeve kind of move you can do. Like, okay, maybe you're to comp for it, but I think those types of maps, you can just, if you do run a 3-3, you can very reliably still just win against most matchups. Whereas you look at, maps like Hanamura, and I think possibly for Watchpoint Gibraltar, which is why I'm keeping my eyes on Jupiter, because their map pick, what have they got to show for this one? This is where you can really show what your preparation is and really use that to win a map, which then puts them into map 5, puts them back on Control, 50-50 again, who knows who wins.
And look, maybe the preparation here is we're going to force 3-3. It's certainly an option available to them here, and they've actually won more 3-3 over the course of the series than they have lost. In terms of the overall map record, it's come off about even, but when you look at where Jupiter are winning, they are looking like the far better, and the losses feel more like misexecutions on the part of Jupiter than necessarily Global Esports flatly outperforming them on the whole. So maybe it's you force 3-3, and this time you have the confidence to not have those misexecutions.
So where you're seeing Jupiter win is specifically, yes, in the 3-3, but also specifically on what was good last patch, or at least the patch we were in regular season. Where Global Esports are winning is what is good currently on this patch 1-3-4. And the interesting thing about this patch is the 1-3-2 comps, notably the GOATs, still really works quite well. And I think especially so on those Control maps. So if Jupiter does take this one, I think it's going to be a very interesting finish. But they have to put in the legwork now. And again, keeping my eyes on this Jupiter squad, they picked the map, so they better show it.
Time for the mid-afternoon low sunset of the Mediterranean. That's actually what the watch point is there for, it's just to watch the sunset. So all laid clear now as we come into what could well be our last map of this quarterfinal. Jupiter, they want to return to a finals if they can, but the buck might stop here. Global Esports really want to punch their tickets and move further forward, and it is indeed going to be 3-3 apiece for these two teams.
So this should play directly into Jupiter's wheelhouse, but also Global Esports, pretty big fans of this composition themselves, but it is the mirror, like you've said previously, where Jupiter have mostly been winning. Cart's already in the car wash right now. Global Esports need to be the ones to respond.
Both also critically running the Winston. This is going to be a real difference maker. We've actually seen very little of Satchok on the Winston over the course of this series. Samurai D, however, we've seen plenty of, and the card still hasn't really been stopped a whole lot. Now this is the first time it's properly being stopped up.
And we're likely to see Winston all throughout both A and B, and maybe even on C, because a lot of high ground here to play with in Jupiter right now. Looking for their first pick, maybe.
Yeah, don't quite get the pick, but they do get the space. Now they can get back onto the cart, continue it moving. They have, at the very least, dislodged Global Esports.
So look at this, Tayo 72%, Lil Rax 31%. If Tayo can get this grab up very quickly, Jupiter going to be at a very big advantage.
And I mean, this is to say nothing of the fact that they are really starting to force Global Esports back, starting to split them apart and scatter them to the 4 wins. Global Esports need really have to position very tightly here. It might not be able to as they retreat. The grab is available. They throw out the sound barrier because they're getting low, but honestly, now they can just throw in all these ultimate self-destruct layered up as well, finds Little Rax, and slowly but surely Jupiter will pick up kills no matter what Global Esports try to do about it.
And this is what opening damage looks like. This is what an ultimate advantage looks like. This is what you can do if you are so heavily out-damaging your opponents. You get a grab so far ahead of your opponents. You get your self-destruct so far ahead of your opponents, and you get that 8-point capped out in 1 attempt.
There's no way Lil Rax gets out of there. That's a real tough pill to swallow.
Lil done.
Gives a bit more space to Jupiter.
You do want to see now Global Esports get this quick reset, because their ultimates are also coming online soon. They need to use them quick snap. Jupiter got that sound barrier available. It's the only real big defense, rally included now as well. And Lil Rax has been in catch-up mode so far, but we need to see this grab.
They are leading in Transcendence Charge. fight might not go on long enough for Sabagon to actually get his. There's going to be that sound barrier to kind of deal with the self-destruct. Lil Rank still has not quite thrown out the grab. By the time he has it, Sabagon might actually have this Transcendence to deal with it. Jupiter
like
taking some pain. Yeah, it's going to be available now. So Global Esports don't quite get that timing window. Here comes the grab, and there's going to be that Transcendence from Sabagon. So a lot of damage still on Samurai D. He will still get finished off.
Wait for Tayo.
He does decide to commit the grab, and that means Xeon Flux's own Transcendence will now get committed here. So this is still numbers advantage for Global Esports. Self-destruct from Ken Mohororo, not finding anything. It will not remech. As the numbers advantage continues now for Global Esports, they will force Jupiter back.
And Jupiter got a little bit desperate there. You can see the Graviton maybe come through slightly late. One member already went down. Kemahororo not quite available to use self-destruct combo. Uses it quite late. Global Esports sees that and they push forward. Great timing by them. Great decision making by them to say, if the self-destruct goes backwards, we are moving forwards and we are going to finish the fight.
And there's the argument where maybe Jupiter wanted to just back out and try it again another time, but they decided to commit. Didn't quite pay off, but not too much the worse for wear.
And that's a fantastic reset as well, because they need to slow this game down. They need to force Jupiter to actually use their ultimates and reset, and they've done both.
Now Global Esports, lots to work with. Stun on Satshock. If they can finish him before Primal Rage, that's big, but actually it's Samurai D who's going to go down, and now Satshock's got that Primal if things really start to get hairy. Jupiter, again, just going to get picked apart and forced back.
And this is where you can see a player like Xenofly doing his best impression of putting the golf ball on that green as well, just sneaking it through that small door. Samurai D thought he was safe. Not quite the case. And Global Esports now 2 fights in a row, starting to look a lot more comfortable on this B defense and really digging their heels in.
Yeah, this is taking a lot more time. Jupiter, they had a very clean push through A, but it wasn't super fast. Now, that slowness is starting to hurt them as they get stopped up here on B. Samurai D just sneaking a stop up, no way to get out from that.
He had a primal though.
Yeah, didn't use it, and Jupiter again, just kind of the worst for wear. Satshock's committed his Primal Rage, so maybe at this point Jupiter just go, well, we got that ultimate out of them. Next one we come in favored. We'll work with that.
And I can see the decision making there from Samurai D as well, because Jupiter, the rest of them were actually on the ground. They have ultimates to play with, but even if Samurai D pops the Primal, yes, it lets him live, but they can't do anything with it. It's actually not offensive, it's totally defensive, and it ends up being slightly wasted, whereas you take the reset, and maybe then you get to walk in big ultimates to play with, and then get something done with everything together.
Of course, you do want to offend with your Primal Rage. That's why they call it that. Do just have a bit of stuttering here, so do bear with us, folks. But Jupiter lining up for that fight now, just getting back onto the payload. Grab going to be committed out, and I believe that is Lil Rax throwing his in first.
Jupiter should have like 6 ults here, so that would be very interesting.
I mean, you'd like to think they've got the tools for this one. So far, they have, at the very least, been able to make some ground. Got some ultimates out, so we're just going to pull back for a second here while we get this resolved. This is looking a bit down to the wire.
Let's do a quick stock take as well. It's about 1:19 or low 1 minute mark for Jupiter here. They had 6 ults to kind of start that fight with. We already saw the Primal Rage being used. Purely based on ults, you'd expect them to kind of pull ahead in this kind of fight. I would also say based on card positioning, Global Esports are going to be able to get back in time to at least contest at the final moments of B. So a couple of things could happen here where Jupiter, if they overcommit and they do win that first fight, but they overcommit, they don't have enough fuel to get through for the rest of B. Or if they don't win that fight at all, I think they don't actually cap, because the time will go to 0 and they'll be in a really bad respawn scenario.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, like this, again, for how smooth A went, arguably it wasn't fast, and all it took was a little bit of solid defense on B for Jupiter to find themselves now really with their backs against the wall. So you sort of look at this, like this is one that they really need to win, based on what?
Want another update?
Oh,
it's about 12 seconds remaining. Jupiter used all their ultimates, and they're only just about to approach the card. So I think we can say that last engagement with 6 ults went a little poorly.
Well, I mean, this one might go better. That's the stance you got to take.
Because they don't have 6 ultimates.
This just in, Ken Mohororo has been demeched. So it's looking a little bit trepidatious, shall we say?
We've got David on the floor. Tell us the details right from Gibraltar.
What's the situation on the ground like there? Starting to sound like a BBC report. But yeah, honestly, it is looking like Jupiter aren't quite going to be able to get this one over the line, unfortunately. And I do believe we are able to get right back into it here. As you see some members dropping on the cart, overtime ticking down, just shy of that B cap. And now you got to say, Global Esports, they have done the groundwork to get themselves to a semi-final.
And I think that's the sort of worst case scenario from the possible outcomes I outlined before we see this result was the third one, which is really bad, is they use 6 ultimates, they don't win the fight, they get reset anyway, and also the time basically goes to the overtime, and that's for Jupiter, that's as dire as it can possibly get. Now, it's not necessarily over because Jupiter's defense has to be a golden standard. It has to be absolutely phenomenal. Global Esports have put themselves in a fantastic position to win. And now for at least a couple maps in a row, I would have said Lijiang and Kings Row felt like Jupiter's maps to win. One of them they did take. Hanamura was easily Global Esports map to win. But going on to this, it's starting to look like Global Esports very much in the lead, and it would be somewhat surprising and possibly a bit of an upset as well if they do lose Gibraltar.
That was in a 3-3 mirror as well. Something that we felt was arguably Jupiter favored and also on a map that they've picked here. So, I mean, it's all signs point to the wrong things for Jupiter is really what that all means. So you look at this last little bit of defense here. Look, this is doable, don't get me wrong, but I don't think this is the situation Jupiter were hoping to find themselves in at this point, and it could just be that they've hit their limit.
Well, let's sort of navigate this with a bit of a lesson in history from earlier maps we played as well. Jupiter, if they can get back to where they were on Kings Row, even on Lijiang, where they were very successful in the 3-3, they can find a lot there that they can really push into, that can give a decent amount of advantages. I don't expect Global Esports, by the way, to stay on this comp.
Yeah,
they just want to do it for the whole hook combo.
You just fish for a pick. If you don't find any, you swap onto what is going to be 3-3. So that does give Jupiter a slight ultimate lead.
What they do fish in is a boot, and now that boot goes on the other foot as Global Esports attempting to get something done.
Satrok took a lot of pain there. This is where the cart moves forward regardless down into the car wash. So Jupiter actually need to get onto this cart. They need to force Global Esports back.
By the way, because the cap finishes on B here, Jupiter need to get a lot of work done on A. It's not even just about, okay, time here. It's a lot of time. They really ideally want to push this into overtime if they lose.
Oh, that's a really dastardly pick there, and suddenly Claire goes down as well. And I mean, just as we were saying, Jupiter, they needed to be getting fight wins. They needed to actually be forcing Global Esports back. They just kind of blow away with the wind.
Okay, I think they get one fight here because the cart was far enough away that they can respawn in time, but look how...
I mean, do they? It's pretty down to the wire. They're going to go ahead and commit in.
They desperately do.
Ooh.
So here's the thing is, they just barely will get something in there, but the problem here is, I think they're in a position where they're likely not going to be able to completely hold on it. Yes, by the way, there is the pause as well. Hopefully we'll get sorted soon. But if they do manage to hold this A point, be a bit of a miracle. If they don't, we're basically into B on a one attempt from Global Esports. And at that point, you got to start thinking they really shouldn't be able to lose. It really shouldn't be possible anymore because they've done the best possible kind of victory on A, which is a one attempt. And then they don't even need a complete B because that's where they completed a hold previously. They got everything working for them, and Global Esports should not at all be in a position to lose if they get past A, which is like it'll happen.
Exactly. As soon as Jupiter find themselves defending on B with like that much time on the clock, at that point you're hoping for fireworks, right? Like you're kind of relying on a miracle. You're relying
hoping
on,
for a disconnect.
Yeah, you're relying on on your Kings Road time bank offense. You're relying on some incredibly tight play that your opponent just doesn't find a chink in, and that starts to feel, I mean, given that we haven't seen that since that one little patch of Kings Row, no matter how much we compliment it, it's not like it's been consistent.
Let's highlight where, this is why it hasn't been consistent, because let's highlight where the strength was. That was on attack, right? Attacking Kings Row. I can also say the defense on A and B, but at the same time, they didn't actually finish the hold, so can we say the defense was good?
Yeah,
If they couldn't
I mean, it was good, but not great.
It was realistically the attacks that you got to compliment them on, and go back to Gibraltar. Attack A, smooth, very good early damage, cleaned up. They actually got A in, I believe, a better time and in a better way than Global Esports are probably going to do now, which is where Tayo just gets a grab in an insane amount of time versus his opponent Lil Rex. Everybody on the side of Global Esports gets a slower ultimate than Jupiter, and then on top of that, Lil Rex gets himself staggered as well. That could not go better for an attacking team, but now they're on defense. So their best moments have sadly passed. Jupiter are now in a position in the game where their own defense, and that's not where they've been strong in the series.
Kids, that's the T.
That's what it says on my scoring sheet anyway. I'm just reading off a script, so.
Yeah. I read off the script as well. I mean, that was a bit of a lame joke. Whoever put that one in there should probably be fired.
Yeah.
But it does appear that the pause is due to a disconnect. So, I mean, I don't know.
That's
could
all
act of God,
Here's the thing. Here's the thing: is if it's on the
They're named
Jupiter
after a
side,
Roman god, maybe
if it's on the
that's what's
Jupiter side, they already didn't have a lot going for them
Yeah.
on this defense. This will be worse.
If it's
it
on the
happened
global
on the
esports
global
side-
esports side,
Like I said, they call upon the gracious god Jupiter to smite someone, strike them down with lightning. And
how many goats did you have to sacrifice for this one?
That
Not
is-
enough because they're still playing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, we can't. We're trying to kill it, but it just won't die. We cannot appease our Pantheon. It would have been even better, actually, if this was the old GE Pantheon, because then
Yeah.
it's versus Jupiter. Like,
Oh my goodness!
that's poetic right there.
It's the whole pantheon versus just one god in that pantheon.
I do believe, and I will just confirm this if we can. I think this is a player on Global Esports. That it is currently
yeah.
Satchok is disconnected.
It's not as dire as it would be if it
If-
was Ryan
yeah.
versus Ryan.
If
Still not good. I think it would be worse, and this matchup would be worse if you're Zarya disconnected. That's probably the more important
Yeah,
matchup
Little
for,
Rex,
for
yeah,
the Winston
yeah.
version. So GE got that going for them.
I'm trying to remember how this works because I wonder if technically they are allowed to drop the map and then they can bring in Savage as a sub for map 5 if they can't get Setrak back. I'm not sure exactly how that works.
Oh, they can swap between maps.
Yeah,
Always.
between maps, yeah. But that's if they're allowed to actually get to the end of this map. Like, there is a world where maybe they just press ahead with 5.
They will do
and
Jupiter
sub Savage
wins.
in. And that's the thing. Like, this is bad. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel here for Global Esports if they can't get Satchok back.
I think this would be definitely the most unfortunate way for
Yeah.
at the end. You never want to see it end because of that.
I mean, that would be a chip you have on your shoulder for the rest
because
of
I'll be
your life.
honest, as previously said, I think Control is very 50-50. Whereas,
I mean, if you've just freshly subbed the main tank, having had a disconnect, it can be that
by the way,
little bit of disconnect.
realistically, this map shouldn't be going as well as it has been for Global Esports because it was Jupiter's pick. But at the same time, this isn't one of those maps where like, oh, we pick it because we have a pocket strategy. We have they kind of picking it because I don't know, it just seems comfortable. They just want to play the 3-3 on it. That's fine, but it's a big difference to why GE picked Hanamura, which is a very specific reason, and they won because of that.
Yeah, kind of puts it as simply, right? I don't know. It's not how you want to see a quarterfinal get to that point, right? Like you want to see that happen because Jupiter really pull out the stops. I don't know. This isn't even their final form, and they're able to have some incredible defense, or better yet, they pick this map. Their offense is good and all that jazz, but. I mean, look, if they get to map 5 because of a disconnect, you'll surely take it.
Let's
the Global Esports
do some contenders trivia
heartbreaker.
while we have the time. If you ever wondered, okay, and this is interesting because Tayo's recently rejoined the roster as a starting member for this particular playoffs match, and maybe even for the rest of playoffs if Jupiter make it that far. And it's interesting because Ryu has been playing for the rest of the regular season, this first 7 weeks. And if you're kind of wondering, okay, well, what's the deal with that 7-man roster? Where's Tayo been? It's realistically, Tayo's been subbing because he's got a balanced university life in there. And they're just going to try and work it out. Moving forward, they're going to try and work out, okay, where can we put Tayo in? Where is it better for Ryu to be in? And then sort of go from there. Because if you look at previous seasons, when we were Cyclops Athlete Gaming Season 2, Tayo was a starter, so he's back as a starter, at least for now. We'll see if that can last, if they can sort of get themselves back in Gibraltar, win it, force that map 5, maybe win that one and go to semi.
I mean,
It's a long path,
yeah,
but
we're in a really odd spot there, I would say. This is, like I said, this is uncomfortable for Jupiter because there's this point where you're almost crossing your fingers going like, oh man, I hope that they don't come back into it, but you don't want your success to be predicated on your opponent's misfortune.
well, we are going to give a bit of time to see if Global Esports can amend the disconnected play if Setchok can make it back in. But in the meantime, I'm going to take a bit of a break. So fingers crossed for Global Esports to get all those things sorted, and we'll see you after this. Hello again, and thank you for sticking with us through that break here on Overwatch Contenders Pacific for the playoffs, our opening quarter-final match still yet to be resolved. We still don't actually know who's going to take out the victory here. Is it going to be Global Esports with the 3-1 clutching through towards that end, maybe winning as, to be fair, in this position we expect them to, or is it going to be Jupiter maybe taking Gibraltar and then pushing us to a map 5? And of course, we are currently still trying to resolve this pause right now, but hopefully connection issues and all that will be solved momentarily.
I mean, that's the thing we were talking about really before we went to that is, with the kind of state of the game when we left Watchpoint Gibraltar, wasn't looking that hot for Jupiter in a way, in a very twisted way. This kind of buys them a chance. If it doesn't get fully resolved out, if it doesn't get fully resolved out, then Jupiter can end up kind of getting Watchpoint Gibraltar sort of by default here, and then you go to that map 5, you're in for a chance. At least though for Global Esports, if the connectivity issues have not been resolved at that point, you can just sub in another tank player. You've got other options there, and you might still have a good fighting chance. If you win it on the 5th map, that's still a win. It still gets you to the semifinals.
And it's going to be one of those cases where you start to think like, okay, well, maybe we're assuming if GE don't win here, we're going to map 5, and you start thinking, well, maybe GE should have won here. And it's going to be, okay, context-wise, maybe slightly different reasoning, but I also want to look at Lijiang and say, I think, out-of-game issues aside, when we're looking at in-game stuff there, I think Jupiter had a very clear shot at winning that map and didn't quite do so. And at multiple stages, because both teams have been quite close, you could say at multiple times outside of Hanamura being one-sided, that both teams have had very clear shots at taking down a map, and in some cases just kind of fell short. So this series could have gone any kind of direction with or without kind of out-of-game issues. So
that's the thing. Yeah, basically, no matter the result and no matter the reason for it, there isn't really a situation where you would feel a win is undeserved for either of these two teams. I think it's sort of the takeaway from this series as we've seen it so far. Like, there's even a point where you argue, Hanamura was 9 seconds away from going to Time Bank, and hey, maybe in Time Bank things change, right? Like, there's, as with so many series against relatively evenly matched teams, you do get into those situations where things fall down very closely, and often it's just the team that kind of shows up right at that particular moment. And well, if it's Jupiter, if we get to a 5th map, then you'd have to say they've earned it.
And honestly, I'm a big fan of 5 maps, and I think if you go to 5 maps here,
5 of us, then it has to be Oasis, and you tie and go to Gardens.
Well, Global Esports would choose, and they can just choose to avoid that one. But
whoa. But can they really?
Let me check the script. No, it says no.
It says Jupiter win at the bottom of map 5 Oasis.
It says I'm not allowed to spoil in game. That's what it actually says. Or contenders. But I do think going to map 5, because it is a bit of a coin flip. It's kind of 50-50. You do kind of whatever you got left, you put it on the table. I think at that stage, the best team unequivocally does win, because they would have taken 3 maps out of 5, and you're sort of the case where, both teams had very good shots all the way along, and a whole bunch. And I think, just leaving it all out on the table for what could be your final showing contenders for the season is a good way to go out, and a good way to win.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing. We're suddenly finding ourselves in a very unanticipated situation, I think, for both of these teams. Look, at the end of the day, I think no matter what kind of happens here, is you just have to go back and look at what the stakes are for these teams, why they're in this and what they want out of it. Because of course for Jupiter, this has been a rougher return season than they would have liked. If they can at least push into a semifinal, maybe even push to a final beyond that, that gets a bit trickier. But hey, that's still big achievement, right? But for Global Esports, every step they take here in these playoffs is a step further than they've ever been before.
Now, I do have an announcement, Mac. I'm getting something from David on the floor in Gibraltar. Is that true? It is going to be a full remake. I don't know why he's called Dave. I just had to take a name out there.
It's a very English name.
We're pretending to be BBC, remember?
And it's a British overseas territory, so there you go. And if he was Spanish, it would just be David. So got options.
But the point is, it will be a map restart for Gibraltar, and that means
maybe a bit of a David and Goliath as we come back into this, because Jupiter were very much on the back foot.
It's sort of, but also GE were the one that lost a member, so who was on the back foot? It's kind of at that stage, both teams were on different.
It's a bit of a saving grace for both, right?
You know, maybe you had a left foot on your back and the other one had the right foot on the back. I don't know, but whatever the stance was, the point is there was something kind of down. There was something negatively impacting both sides.
Yeah.
So I think in some kind of way, a full restart is the most neutral way to settle this.
Yeah.
And, when you really think about it.
It's one of those situations where both teams will be happy to wipe the slate clean, right? It's not like this inherently
Should feel
favors...
slightly happier, but no.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't inherently favor
1%.
one team. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're Global Esports, the happiest thing for you would be if you hadn't had a disconnect at all, because you were probably going to win. But look, the other thing you've got to say is, if they could win once, you would like to believe they can do it again.
Yeah, I also want to see how teams adapt because we talk about adapt.
Wow.
I don't know.
That
We
sounds
talk about
like
teams adapting through a series, and I'm going to learn to adapt to that word as well in a second. But what we notice is so far Jupiter have done a really good job, especially when we replay maps. So we go to Time Bank, again, outside of Hanamura, because that was the one where it seemed like Jupiter was just confused. But on the maps where Jupiter have a clear game plan, they know what they're going up against, and it was Kings Row, and the way they kind of took that Time Bank versus regular time was very interesting. I think that this is kind of like a soft time bank in a way, right?
Yeah.
Both teams get a 4-minute time bank, you can sort of say here. And it's like, okay, you have to wipe the slate clean, you restart again. And once you get into the stage where you've already played the team on this map, you already get a feel for how they want to play, what they do, what mistakes they made, what strengths they had as well. How do you reapproach that situation? And based on Kings Row, Jupiter did that better. Based on Hanamura, if Jupiter are confused, they do it way worse.
Based on Watchpoint Gibraltar.
Well, who knows? Because we haven't
Yeah.
seen the second.
The second part of it, exactly. Yeah.
There wouldn't be a time back either because this would have
Yeah.
finished at B. So
Yeah.
in a way, we're going to get that opportunity to go into a
certainly-
second full round.
Certainly Jupiter get an opportunity to have that revisitation that, as we say, has sort of felt like it favors them somewhat, or at least did favor them when we saw it on Kings Row, and we didn't quite see it on Hanamura anyway. So again, like for all we know, slight difference in timings on Hanamura. We actually do go into Time Bank. They get a second time around, and maybe Jupiter would look better on that one as well. Like at that point, we're getting very conjectural, but you still got to go back to what that means for this map, and it's an opportunity presented. Even if they're not inherently better on the second go around, you've got the benefit of hindsight now of like, okay, we mis-executed that. These things didn't work. We didn't anticipate the fact that they would play like this. And now you can mitigate that. Now you can be more ready for it.
So by the way, both teams were pretty good on attacking A.
Yeah.
Both teams kind of fell over on B. I want to say Jupiter had a better time attacking A than Global Esports did. B, we only saw one of the teams really play on it. We didn't get to B for the second time around, so who knows what will happen there. I want to see how teams then change up how they approach A, notably on the defense, because that's what's been lacking on both sides. So preferably you'd see here both teams kind of change up the game a little bit so that they don't kind of just have a wash defense to start with.
I think it's just a lot of questions, really. That's the situation we're in, right? Like,
And I know I have all the answers, but I'm not giving them to anybody.
Not allowed.
The Russo brothers said, couldn't do it. Hashtag no spoilers, so.
Must be there are some people who like got to go to like advanced screenings and stuff like that. Like, that's got to be tough to like keep a lid on it because you know what happens. Imagine just walking
No, because
around
they
like
slam a tome on you that's just like, here's what happens if you
yeah. We hit you with this.
You go to Thanos Space Jail
Yeah,
for this
you
one.
go directly to Disney jail. It's like regular jail, but
Yeah.
happier, but also less happy.
In a secret Walt Disney vault
Yeah.
somewhere in the HQ.
I mean,
of
there's
Disney.
a part of
They
me
have-
that genuinely thinks
They
there might
have
be a secret
the
jail cell in
real
Disneyland.
Infinity Gauntlet. I'm not talking about a fake one. They have the real thing in there.
The one.
But they haven't
And
found
when-
any
and when
stones
Walt
yet.
Disney
So,
gets
so right now,
unfrozen, he's gonna put
so
it
right
on.
now, it's just a golden glove. It doesn't do anything because it doesn't have any stones in it. So it's just a regular glove.
Right.
But they're letting you know that if they do find a stone, you're in trouble.
What they're doing is they're actually putting the MCU. They're like broadcasting it out to the stars. So like alien civilizations will be like, they know about them. They know about the stones. Let's go investigate. We can lure them to us, and then, like I said, eventually when all said and done, we'll unfreeze Walt Disney. He'll put on the glove and destroy all unhappiness, I guess. What does Walt Disney even want? I don't know. Can't say I'm very familiar with his
Money. What?
personal motivations. yeah.
But what we can spoil is Game of Thrones Season 8. No. Because at this point, if you wanted to
Wasn't
see
it
it,
so wild
you
when
probably
Bran
have.
started walking?
And if you didn't want to see it, you probably don't care.
Yeah, right? Like, it's one of those shows that's like, you're so inclined to watch it that if you haven't watched it by like nearly a week later, then like, what are you doing, right? Like, what? If you haven't watched Game of Thrones and you want to, and you're currently watching this, I'm not saying go watch Game of Thrones right now, but what I am saying is work out your priorities. That is
Because the Night King has, like, he's got one goal.
only one. We know exactly.
His
Unlike
priority
Walt
list.
Disney-
His priority list is like
Yeah.
one thing. It's like that's it. Right
Unlike
top.
Walt Disney, I know exactly what the Night King's motivations are. Frankly, Walt Disney is a poorly written
He has
villain.
the same motivation as a Freezer. A Freezer just wants to freeze.
I mean, he has the same motivation as any force of nature. It doesn't want, it just does.
My fridge and the Night King have the exact same priority.
He's the same motivation as Anton Chigurh and the Grim Reaper.
Oh, hey, but we are back in the game, and as was mentioned, this is a full restart of the map. So back to 0, back to square one.
It's a fresh one.
This is it's like rebooting a series. You know, this is like, you know, when the sequel
Yeah.
didn't do as well as you thought it would, so you can just start the whole franchise again.
Bring back Agent Carter. Anyway,
And remember, Jupiter severely outdamaged
Yeah.
Global Esports on this first approach, so that's what you got to look out for again, and that's also what Global Esports needs to avoid.
and it's same compositions as well, so this is where we get to see if Jupiter kind of kicked it up a notch. Same movement for the most part to begin with. Global Esports not quite sitting the ground as quickly here, but slowly but surely Jupiter are moving forward.
At 22% to 9% on the Zarya challenge is nothing to write home about just yet, but it does set a precedent because that was one of the main discrepancies on this attack. Jupiter with Tayo just severely getting that grab up ahead of Lil Rax.
One thing Global Esports have up on Jupiter right now is Xeon Flux's ultimate charge, but Satrok takes big chunks, so that's going to be then forced off the high ground. This is where Jupiter can start moving back. Oh, hello, hold on a second. D-Mech there on Kemo Hororo. Samurai D gets picked off as well. Bit of a botched rotation from Jupiter, having done the groundwork, forcing Global Esports off.
And I think Jupiter just kind of got baited onto the cart because they lost cart control just for a little bit. And then suddenly they see, okay, well, Global Esports Satrok's kind of diving for it. Jupiter want to chase him on there, but as they're doing so, they're opening up their back line to all the supports and other damage dealers from GE who then get that huge cleanup. So already the timelines have been shifted.
Now Global Esports get to start rotating into Ultimate, so Jupiter even slower on A. They're going to have to really turn this around, get the snowball going if they want to really rewrite history here.
And this alternate timeline for Gibraltar is already looking pretty wacky right now. Rally's going to come through very quickly for both sides.
Big dive in. That's going to be a Transcendence out from Sabagod. They've got a lot less to work with than what...
Okay.
That's a nice one, though. Ken Mohororo able to stop that one up from Little Rax. Self-destruct doesn't really get anything done. The grab out from Tayo. They didn't get too much follow-up. Now Jupiter find themselves very lean, but honestly, Global Esports is starting to run thin. Tayo down. They nearly traded with Little Rax. Are going to be able to finish that trade. That's something in favor of Jupiter. They do have a slightly closer respawn. They need to keep Samurai D alive, though. It's going to be a little bit of a tough one. The sound barrier running out for Azure, able to commit that quite late in the fight, but Jupiter haven't lost any extra members just yet.
And this is where reinforcement distance so good for Global Esports. They're going to have all their members back up and together looking for their next couple of picks. Just got to keep those HP bars healthy though because, well, Xenofly's taking a bit of damage.
Sabagod's nearly got a Transcendence. He's just barely leading Xeon Flux for that. Self-destruct from Ken Mohororo. Doesn't get anything. Doesn't really put too much pressure out either. Just double rally either side here. Both teams looking for whatever is going to bring them the advantage now.
And that could be Lil Rax on that Graviton Surge. He's really getting close to it. Self-destruct's going to catch
Oh,
Tayo.
no, that's a bit disastrous there. Jupiter now just one man down. They're going to go ahead and commit a Transcendence to keep Samurai D in the fight. They've decided to double down on this, but they need to get kills to make it worthwhile. And that's going to be a tall order. Global Esports, their own Transcendence to keep in the fight. They've also got a grab. They've also got a Primal Rage. Jupiter lose a member and commit Sound Barrier as well. They are really committing hard onto this. It is going to get a grab out of Little Rax, and that is probably going to predicate the retreat for Jupiter, and that may have just been an overcommitment.
And now we're down to the last minute. Already 3 is gone, and we have not capped out just yet. Global Esports, look, they had a fantastic defense on B last time around, but in this alternate universe, they're about to potentially fully hold A, and that's an absolute nightmare for Jupiter, who, by the way, capped out A so quickly last time, and they might not do it now.
Turns out the team that looked at how the cards fell last time and went, well, how do we change that up this time was Global Esports. They will not get forced back that fast. Now, Jupiter going to go ahead and run out with a Reinhardt here.
Which is nice because they understand that the point is at a place, the card is at a place where high ground may not be as big of a deal as it was before, but they need to now make sure that they can find a proper engagement because Global Esports are going to be looking for flanks with that Winston.
And Global Esports have way more ultimates to work with here as well. Jupiter is still a little ways away from something like the grab or even a Transcendence. They're going to throw out a self-destruct, which will get a D-Mech on Xenofly. That is an opening. They are going to be able to pick them up as well, so that's something. As Satrok gets aggressive with the Primal Rage, there is still a Transcendence on Sabagon if things start to get dicey. Little Rags down. If they can preserve ultimates, they will. And actually, they might just. They seem to just be purely fragging out here. Satrok might just limp away from this one with his life, but no, not even him. Jupiter are going to be able to get this one over the line.
If they're not done yet, they want to make sure they can at least push into B, but this one will be difficult just like last time because, well, not a lot of time. 230, a snowball would be required here. The Ryan's going to do a decent job with the Shadow available. Satrok knows that. He's going to swap over to his own. Playing the Winston here against the Shadow would probably be death for his team, so just want a match.
Jupiter do have more other ultimates to work with, though. There is a window before Xeon Flux has a Transcendence where they can maybe throw in this grab. Teo, if he wants to get aggressive with it, which he has done in the past, could find a way in.
Also maximizing cart push, almost on this final corner. In fact, just about past it now. If they win this fight, they can actually cap out B in one go.
Transcendence is available now, though, for Jupiter. They need to decide what they want to commit and where and when. That got largely blocked out. Now they commit the grab. It's going to be Transcendence. The grab is though. So that's still something. And Samurai D able to charge one out. Self-destruct from Xenofly finds nothing. So Jupiter, having come up the better end of all of that commitment from both teams now, just need to get it over the line. Need to actually confirm the last of these kills. Satrok, Shadow right as he goes down, and a huge self-destruct from Ken Mahororo. It may only be 2 kills, but it's going to clear out pretty much all of what's left on this point. The rest is just dregs. So history being rewritten here as Jupiter successfully capped B.
And that's the thing, because Jupiter don't get reset this time. That's how Global Esports won before, is they really forced that respawn, really played the timer, and the cart slid backwards ever so slowly. This time the cart does the opposite. Jupiter continue pushing through, got in that one fight territory for B, won that fight, they ate the grab from Low Rex as well, which is an absolutely huge deal because Global Esports needed a weapon, they needed something to force a fight, and they couldn't get it. Jupiter in fantastic position on C.
They can afford a fight loss or two here, at least in terms of time, so ideally you just keep the momentum going, but if it doesn't happen, they've got a bit of a safety net. Huge shatter, absolutely brilliant. Sound barrier going to keep the team relatively safe, though, in spite of it. Satrok is low, but they can't quite dive in to finish him off. So Global Esports get a bit of breathing room.
And the next round being loaded into this chamber right now is going to be Tyo with the grab, looking for the angle.
Ooh, goes ahead, tosses it against the pillar. That's going to be a lot of members caught. They're struggling to get the kills. They finally find Little Rags, but that's all they really got out of it. Now self-destruct layered up from Xenofly. They need to be careful about that. Does not quite find anything as Jupiter continue to push in with that Transcendence running. They'll find Satrok. Stun on Xenofly. He takes a lot of pain. And the heal is good, but it's not enough to keep him going. So Global Esports slowly but surely slipping back on this one.
And Lil Rex doing his darndest right now, trying to get this Graviton Surge up. Bubble Kitty's going to even swap onto the Ana. It's the last chance here.
Oh, Little Rex isn't even going to get close enough to commit it onto the payload. It's just off to the side, but none of the members are able to actually touch the cart to stop it. So Jupiter pulling out something from nothing. The opposite, in fact, of what they did last time. A slow A, but an absolute mamma jam through the rest of the map.
That is an adjective I've never heard before and hopefully we'll never hear again. But what I do want to see now is Global Esports on their own offense. How will they re-approach this one? Because we've seen what Jupiter can do when they're attacking. We've talked about Jupiter's attack for this entire series. It's been great. It's been their biggest strength. Playing 3-3, playing this mirror. Jupiter have been winning when they're on the offense. But for GE, it's now about their offense. Jupiter has been notably weaker in comparison on their defense, so this is still opportunity for GEs to force this time back. It would be the 3rd time we go to Gibraltar.
It's possible. Say that much. It's all going to come down to whether or not Jupiter can anchor some kind of defense in. If they can do that, then their hard work pays off. We're handed an opportunity with the reset of this map and what was probably a losing position before this, now have themselves the chance to win it outright, and failing that, at least get to go to a time bank.
And I don't even know if Global Esports can really be upset about how at least the start of this, or the first half of this map really went, because like you mentioned, it's actually a much better start than what we got last time. Global Esports nearly completely held A, and in some ways almost should have, but it just wasn't the case. That's not what happened, and once they failed to do that, they never want to fight afterwards, and now they got to win a lot of fights in a row to get this completed cap.
Maybe they just weren't anticipating the snowballed Jupiter. Maybe we look back to that King's Row time bank, but at any rate, before we look back, let's go ahead and look at what's happening right now in the present.
Very aggressive.
Yeah, could be a bit dangerous. Samurai D is in a lot of trouble here, and he is going to get finished off. So that did not pay off for Jupiter. This gives Global Esports a lot of free push.
And I'll tell you why they're getting aggressive as well, because they're running the Ryan version, and if they wait too long, then the Winston has high ground priority, and Global Esports push into this next section, and they manage, they can actually take all the ground available. They can actually push around the map, and Jupiter can't do so. That was their window for Jupiter to really get something done, and they kind of fell on their face.
Yeah, and they don't really kickstart the snowball on the defense that they would have liked. They do still get another shot at defending, but this is now with Global Esports coming in with what is an unequivocal advantage.
And you actually want to wait for the cart to move up slightly, because you don't want to fight into this corner necessarily. You want to have this flight ground area. This is kind of a little bit more ideal for Jupiter.
And this is now the push in that Global Esports want to make. Satrok took a lot of damage in the rotation, so it's having to be a bit careful here. Jupiter might have weathered
Watch
the
grab.
worst part of that. Now Lil Rex coming up on some ultimate. Satrok Primal Rage is going to really throw Jupiter into disarray. They've only really got a Transcendence. Samurai D is separated way out from his team here as well. It's going to be very hard to keep him alive. Look at that. They're trying with the Transcendence to get to him. I think they just barely... No, they don't even get that. And that's such a huge commitment off, way off to the side of the fight. They get one or half one back in Xenofly's mech, but Jupiter are definitely the worst off on this one.
And worst
That's
of
a
all,
grab.
we still have a grab in here, but we don't have the sound barrier from Clear just yet.
Yeah, the sound barrier was able to be committed from Azure, but you can't match that on the side of Jupiter, so they just end up committing their own grab. I mean, they forced Lil Raxes, I suppose, but it's still a worse off trade for Jupiter.
I mean, that's the force was going to be used anyway. I think Lil Rex was always looking to make that commit through.
Yeah.
The big difference was he knows the Transcendence was used by Savagod, and now potentially staggered members. These guys got bad spawns, got forward spawns, and now they're going to go back to spawn.
I mean, that's so rough as well. Like, maybe there's the word where Jupiter should have just gone, look, Samurai D is done for. Let's not try and keep him alive. Let's not worry about it. Let's hold on to these tools for something else. But
I think it's a lose-lose scenario. If
Yeah.
he goes down, you lose a lot of power in your comp. If he stays alive, well, you lose your Transcendence. He went down anyway.
and
so
your positioning.
that's Primal Rage did so much work from Satrok. Now he's got another one up and available.
Wants to get the same kind of mileage this time if he can, so help it. And Jupiter arguably have even less this time around to deal with it. Nearly have some ultimates up on rotation, though.
You can't wait too long.
Nice
Satrok
start.
now going to Primal straight in.
And look, same game plan. Isolating Samurai D to some extent. Oh, just barely able to get in for the block on the self-destruct between himself and Tayo. It's going to be Samurai D getting absolutely buffeted about once again, but this time not going down. So now Shoes on the other foot. Jupiter are the ones rotating into ultimates.
Shadow available. Goes down on 3.
Nice shatter, self-destruct tossed forward. Nice bubble, keeps most of the members safe from that one, but certainly not safe from other damage. That's going to be a Transcendence to deal with. Lil Rax's grab, now that one's run out. They've kept everyone alive. Nice stun on Lil Rax, going to be able to finish him off. Isolation damage coming in. Anakin down, but the trades are still favoring Jupiter right now. Xenofly does get back in the mech, but it might be a tad too late. He's just going to get straight back in and jet out of the fight.
This has been such a huge hole for Jupiter as well. Keeping Samurai D alive has been absolutely pivotal. You see him getting bumped around. He got pushed down to about 100 HP or even less. If he dies at that point and has to respawn, Jupiter probably loses point. They lose that fight as well. But because he stays alive, gets an Air Shatter in, connects onto 3, and Global Esports have no good defense against it. Jupiter push in, and they win that fight.
It's the difference in fighting in that much more open space. You can't just bump him down a corridor like they did on point A. They always had line of sight on Samurai D.
Shadow available again, by the way. So is Graviton Surge. Global Esports the ones lacking momentum.
Jupiter kind of holding on to all the cards, at least for the time being. There's
That's a
another
big one.
massive shatter out from Samurai D. That's a bit of a funky one. Xenofly nearly kind of forced back for a second, rather forced Samurai D back, but big team wipe to come out for Jupiter there.
And a bigger stagger as well. This one's going to really hurt this offense now. About 2 minutes remaining. It's kind of like opposite world because well, Global Esports this is about where Jupiter started to really fail on the original alternate universe kind of push on Gibraltar before, and now they're at risk. They're at serious risk of Global Esports, that is, maybe not completing B if they don't get enough momentum through. Setrock finally onto the Rhine. They're going to play that Rhine 1v1 pretty soon as well, and they need to get that Earthshatter up. Grav is still up for Tayo and not for Lil Rex.
Yeah, we're in that alternate universe where the shoe is firmly on the other foot, or maybe the glove is on the other hand, I don't know. The gauntlet.
There's something on the other limb.
Yeah, the object is on the other body part. Now Jupiter with all
5 ults.
boys, that's the thing. They've got it all, man. And there's not much time for Global Esports. They're really getting to pull one out of the hat here. That's going to be Jupiter just freely committing in. Transcendence to answer the grab. Self-destruct layered in. They don't quite get the opening up that they need for that to deal damage. Earthshatter out is something. They're trying to finish off Bubble Kitty or someone, really anyone here. Samurai D takes some damage. They go ahead and commit a Transcendence. All these low members of Global Esports, but if Jupiter don't finish them off, then Global are just going to come back in with a lead of their own.
And this is where the game gets extended as well, and not in a good way for Global Esports. 1 minute remaining. This is it. This is going to be one of the last couple of pushes. They can maybe afford one reset.
They do have the ults for it though. They've got the grab self-destruct combo, and Sound Barrier is not ideal for blocking against it. There it is. Picks up 2 and 2 highly critical members as well. No counter trades really here for Jupiter. Zatrock's got an Earthshatter if things start to turn south, but they will not. They carry on northward. What's north of north? Well,
Really north.
yeah. Frigid cold is what Jupiter are finding out.
The way the globe works is you actually get less north. You get too far north, then you get back to normal, and then south. But anyway, where we're going right now is C. The last point of this cap, less than 2 minutes remaining.
It's also
Four
got
ultimates
the
available.
C in the background. That's a late kill on Ken Mahororo.
As you can see, he goes down,
Boo.
and Jupiter looking realistically at just the grab, don't have a combo available. And this could be a very difficult defense because they haven't really found anything to work off just yet. Can't make its way around.
Oh, Stalin Samurai D means the Earthshatter gets through, but it's only really Tayo on his back. He gets back up, throws in a grab. They've got Ken Mahororo there, not quite got the self-destruct up, so they decide they're not going to commit it just yet. They're going to try it in a different way. Nice Earthshatter. Doesn't mean they're able to get the self-destruct damage. A little bit unfortunate placement there. So now Jupiter have thrown a lot into the mix, having not got anything for it.
I think Kimahororo's mech just went a little bit off to the side, didn't quite explode at the angle they wanted to, and now they're going to need explosions in another way because Jupiter needs some picks and they got DMEC'd.
They got nothing really to work with. Amakin gets picked off despite that Transcendence coming in. Global Esports have more to work with. They get another 2 off the self-destruct. Xenofly, so consistent. They might be able to dive out of those spawn gates for one last hurrah on this defense. But Global Esports, they've done the groundwork. It'll be a lower time bank, though, than what Jupiter came in with, but they will get the cap themselves as well.
And now we get to see this time back. We get to see the teams do it all over again, but it's Jupiter that actually have a bit of an advantage here. Now I'm really thinking about what happens on the Jupiter attack. And first of all, you're going to be in a stage where the team with less time, in this case Global Esports, is going to make that attack first. And how much distance can they make? Because we've seen Jupiter somewhat struggle in the defense, but look at that B, it was pretty solid. Jupiter, if they can really do quite well on their attack, which has so far in the series been pretty decent, all things considered, they're actually in a really good position to win this and take us to map 5.
I think the thing I maybe want to see more is what's Jupiter's defense rather going to be like? Because this is where they have the opportunity, right? Only 1 minute on the clock. If they can actually win a fight at the right time on point A, something they have failed to do so far, then honestly the win is almost guaranteed. If they fail, if they give up too much space, then it just gets so hard. So unlike King's Row, where they got to set the pace, they got to attack first and set the benchmark, this time they have to set the benchmark by defending well, which has traditionally been their weaker part.
And we see here Global Esports might be throwing Jupiter a bone here with the Rhine pick themselves, and that kind of helps out Jupiter's composition, at least in the early stages. It means they can take a nice neutral, nice clean neutral. No one has a real big advantage or anything like that. And Bubble Kitty may be looking to start on the Ana as well, which could be a bit of a flex. Nope, just going for the nade.
Yeah, just see if they catch anything. They won't, so situation normal.
And this is where if Global Esports started on the Winston as they would have normally done, this opening section would have been a bit of a wash. But I think the fight's really, this fireworks are really going to start exploding once this cart reaches around that underside and comes out the other end.
Jupiter are happy to just let this one roll for a little bit as well. They want to let the clock run down until they're in one fight territory. That's where they'll start to make their stand.
They also have to. I don't think they can take a fight early
Well,
on this
yeah.
map anyway. Well, you're at the stage now where you got to look at damage output, and if anybody can get a really fast ultimate, that's what's going to swing this fight very, very quickly. So, looking for the rotation from Global Esports, who will push into the room instead inside.
Yeah, Sabagod's leading in ult charge as well, and it actually could be the Transcendence that is the difference maker, especially with Xeonflux taking his pain.
Angle's great. You just want to rush forward if you get the
Satrok!
chance.
He's in trouble. It's a trade, though. They got Samurai D just a fraction of a hair beforehand. That Transcendence still not quite available from Sabagod. Now
gotta go,
it's here.
he's gotta go.
They got to commit that. They didn't save Kenma Horora's mech. They got to do it now, man. Better late than never, I suppose. And now what are they trying to leverage into? They nearly have a grab, but if they don't survive until that, then it doesn't matter. They've got to rally. Oh, no, stunned. They're still going to be able to get a chunk of it, though. Claire gets killed off. Jupiter's still waiting on that grab.
And they need it so badly. They need their members so badly. Look at that cart position.
Are they going to
Aegis,
leave this?
They kind of have to. They don't want to get snowballed too hard. They want the best possible opportunity to defend B, and that is to give away A.
They've got an opportunity here still. They don't want to give up too much space, but they also need a good angle on the defense. They don't want to make it too hard on their own attack, but
I think they need the sound barrier. They desperately need the sound barrier, and preferably the Earth Shatter. Sadchok is going to get there first for Global Esports. Happy to take as much free cart push as possible while Jupiter are charging. But Jupiter need to go.
they've lined it up. They have to commit now pretty much. They've nearly got a self-destruct layer in with the grab, but by the time they wait for that, so do Global Esports. They commit their shatter first. It gets Tayo on his back. That's going to stall out the grab. He stays alive,
Shield
but only
help.
just barely. They throw in the grab first. Silrax gets it in, and now Jupiter, they've thrown everything in, but they don't actually have the members, the damage to follow it up. It's just a fraction of a hair later, but they do still pick up Xenofly. They might still be in this, especially with that later Transcendence from Sabagod. If they can pick up some kills, they might just be in business. Overtime also disappears so fast. Global Esports cannot give up too much ground.
Jupiter just need one fight. If they win one fight, they
Satrok.
hold. And it's all about them right now.
Satrok's
That's
down.
it.
That's the opening. That's what they got to double down on, and there it is. Global Esports forced off the cart, but you've got to say that is still a lot of distance. It's only 30 seconds more for Jupiter than what Global Esports had.
And I think you can respect Jupiter's decision there as well to play safe, to play for what will give them the better chance to actually complete a hold somewhere, because you do not want to allow Global Esports a chance to just snowball through B, through C, and then be in a reverse situation as you were on King's Row. So actually still reasonably winnable for Jupiter with the slightly better time. And yes, currently we do have a pause, so hopefully that does get resolved, because I don't think you want to restart this one.
Look, I think the other thing that you've got to say for Jupiter here as well is because of that extra 30 seconds, they have something that Global Esports do not have, and that is the ability to take a second fight on A if they lose the first. Look, you don't want to be in that position in the first place, but when you look at all the factors, look, it's certainly more distance than you would ideally give away. There is the world where you can just fully hold out on A. That would be great for you with the extra 30 seconds, but this one's still achievable with about a minute and a half, and they've got some extra fallbacks as it.
I think Global Esports can afford to pull a span out right now and just kind of throw it in there, because you can possibly run a Baptiste bunker here. You can possibly do something wacky here, because I think in these kind of desperate time back scenarios where there's not a lot of time on, you got about like we said, a minute 30, or in the case of GE, it was just 1 minute. If you confuse the side of Jupiter again, like you did on Hanamura, I think they lose, because they showed on Hanamura they had no idea how to deal with things if they haven't seen it before, if they haven't been in that scenario. They kind of just fell apart, especially when there's no time, or you don't have time to adjust. So I think it would be reasonably smart for GE to maybe attempt that, because Jupiter, once they get rolling, and we've seen them get rolling, they're attacking. This is where they're strong. You're really risking them getting through and kind of winning here. So GE got to, in my opinion, pull out the thing that gives them the highest chance of winning, which might be something strange.
And look, either it works and great, you win, or it doesn't and you still go to a game 5. It's not like Global Esports are the ones that have to win this one. You'd certainly like to, but they are the ones with the options. So pause resolved, and oh man.
Options are strong, I'll tell you that. Options allow you to do things that other teams don't expect, and that worked perfectly for them at Hanamura. And I think once you really dig deep into that brain, you got to think about, what's been good for us, what's been really working for us.
They want to run 3-3.
3-3 has been kind of good, but it's coin flip. You don't actually know if you're going to win with this.
We do have another pause coming out here, so... And this is really heartbreaking. I did just see, as that pause was coming through, that is again Satchok unfortunately disconnecting.
They got enough time this time to
Yep.
at least, you know.
I do believe the previous pause as well was for the same reason, so...
I mean, this time around, it's
Are we
like,
just
okay.
back in the same position?
Yeah, no, because we haven't started the game yet. It's still in setup time, so I think it's okay. But, you know,
Well,
let's...
in terms of whether or not you can get him back, is the... I mean, you just...
Oh, you got it back once. You pray that it'll happen again. But where we are at
Very
currently,
Barbarian.
anyway, is the fact that I think with the 3-3, let's also consider that A, defense was pretty decent on the mirror for the side of GE on regular time, but it also wasn't, you know, the other time beforehand, before the remake.
It wasn't amazing.
Uh,
It's like it was
You
decent.
talking about what just happened in the regular time for the defense on A?
The regular time, like this one just being was great.
Yeah.
The one before that,
Was awful.
Yeah.
It was straight up awful. So it's two very different things. It's like, you know, on one side it's been good, on the other side it's been bad.
Satchok having some issues there, it seems.
So they got to kind of focus on, again, what's been working well for them and kind of lean in on that. I think
What's been working well is having Satchok in the match.
that always helps.
Yeah.
Having 6 members is
That's
usually.
I have to
usually
say,
what you
I would
want
say
to do.
that's actually been the biggest factor towards their success.
Now what you hope is the this game is safe to leave sort of icon thing comes up, and then Order Jupiter are like, oh, it's safe to leave, and they just all abandon.
Woo!
Come on.
No, I mean, again, in a different way, we're now back to square one again. Previously, we were back to square one, and then
How
we
many times
reset
do you
the
watch
map,
Gibraltar today?
Yeah. It is. Well, that's why they call it Watch Point. I'm gonna watch a hell of a lot of it. I don't know. I'm not sure how exactly it plays out rules-wise, but I do believe there is a situation where Jupiter can, basically it goes to Jupiter, and maybe then there's an option for a substitution, or Global Esports get to work out what they want to do.
I mean, they might just be allowed
We
to
don't know.
force the 6v5 and say, hey, play on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, which is as good as a forfeit, as it were. Like it's not a total gimme, but I don't know. Like I don't know is I suppose the real takeaway from this. I mean, the real thing is this has been a couple of times now. Like maybe you get Satchok back here, but you've got to substitute anyway if you get to map 5. Like at any rate, this is, again, it's not the situation Global Esports really want to find themselves in. This time around, you'd say, if this ends up going the way of Jupiter, with maybe a 5v6 being a factor, this one would feel a bit more earned, I dare say, because they're in a position where they could have done it with the 6 versus 6.
I think Jupiter definitely did much better, all things considered, this Gibraltar than the previous one that we saw.
Like holding up the scorecard, like, this one's a 9.
I mean, they finished the map, didn't they? They didn't do that before. Defense-wise, we don't know. Like, we only saw a little bit before we had to do that sort of restart, and so that it's a little bit unclear for both sides. I think maybe that even helps Jupiter in a way because Global Esports don't have as much information to work on for what happens when we start getting in towards B and onwards, or in this case, not onwards, because B is where it'll end.
Well, they saw what happened when they got onwards as
So,
well,
to be
previously.
fair, this is kind of in a really interesting way. We're back to somewhat of where we were before the remake, but, you know, swap sides kind of. It's
the shoes, they just
how many
keep-
shoes and different
keep swapping
how many
feet. Yeah. I mean, at this point, the shoes have worn through cleanly. They're just swapping trousers and blazers and things. It's madness
What if,
over
wow,
there.
what if you could? I mean,
It's a full on.
what if you were? What if you're
It's just a
centipede
clothes
and
swap
you're
meet now.
You're centipede and you're swapping all sorts of different shoes.
So many feet and so many shoes. But the shoes are all back on for Global Esports. Satchok back in the mix for now.
And I want to look at Sabergod here because the Anno is just kind of being hovered over, and a lot of teams might actually just go for a quick sleep dart play at the start to see if they catch anything. And I also did wonder if Sabergod was maybe thinking about staying on it anyway, because for both sides it becomes true that when you have no time to work with and it's time back, pulling out something that might kind of, you know, throw a spanner in the work and just really make it difficult for the other team to adjust to could work for either side. But so far, both teams, gentleman's handshake, gonna go for 3-3.
This is an interesting rotation. They get Samurai D as well. Xeon Flux is there in the trade. And that's actually okay
Huge
for
trade.
Jupiter. They're happy to take that because they've got a closer respawn. Satchok.
Off the map.
Yep. Oh no. That's a
Off the
another
map and
disconnect.
off the...
Just walked
I was gonna
right
say,
out
I
of the
was
match.
I was gonna say, oh, so he wasn't resetting it. That's when you're no longer.
No,
in
well,
the
he's
game.
resetting his computer.
So I think the Xeon Flux. So this time around, by the way, we're not in setup time anymore, so this one will hurt. But I think it was going to be GE potentially running back anyway. This is going to be them. It's actually a 2-for-2 trade. So it's not like the end of the world if they play it on. But GE, after losing Xeon Flux, are going to have to go back regardless because they're one down. Reinforcement distance of respawn heavily favors the attackers in this case, which is Jupiter. So Jupiter actually have a window to work with, and now a double window to work with because also the main tank's gone. It's been a okay start for Jupiter and a slightly less ideal start for GE, not including the technical difficulties.
This is not how you. I mean, I say this isn't how you
This
want to
ain't
see
it?
it go, but at the same time, that was very entertaining to see Satchok just.
I thought he was
Woo!
legitimately. I thought he was actually.
I was trying to figure out why, and then I realized he disconnected. And at
I
that
thought it
point,
was because, like, I understand this. They
very
lost the
slapstick.
player. They want to reset.
he's just like, I want to end
This
it
is
all.
just a very interesting way of resetting. I guess debatably it's faster because if you did want to go onto like a Winston or something,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
like, if I jump off the
you're
map and
changing-
respawn,
Yeah.
that might be faster than me walking back to spawn, changing, coming back. So
But
I think
actually, none of that
I
applies.
was just trying to really
trying to math
wrinkle
it
brain
out
that
there.
one, like just thinking like, okay,
got a
what's
question
what's
for
the intelligent play here?
I've got a question for you. How? I know that some of them are in like fictional settings.
I'll think
but
about
they're
it when I wanna
clearly
answer
analogous to the real world. How many Overwatch map like locations have you been to? Like let's go by country. Like
just
Like
country?
clearly the country that it is based off or set in. How many have you been to? Because I've been to a chunk of the countries that the Europe ones would be set in, and like for some of them the specific
Would.
city. I haven't been to Santorini, which is what Ilios is.
Do you want to know what a really funny one
I
is?
also haven't been to Gibraltar.
Because there's maps also include some of like the
Like the moon?
deathmatch maps, like the
suppose.
Thailand map. We've been to that one.
Oh! Also, I have been to a cemetery, so necropolis. I haven't been, yeah.
No, but Necropolis exists somewhere in the world. That's like off the side of Anubis, so that's kind of in
Yeah.
Egypt.
I haven't been to Egypt.
So you need to go to a
have
cemetery
not
in
been.
Egypt for that one to count.
I haven't been to China, Korea, or Japan. So that's Lijiang Tower, Hanamura, and Busan.
And Mecca base. Oh, that's in Busan.
Oh, I don't know. I feel like I've been to a lot, but then when I really math it out, I've just not.
Have you been to Eco Point, Antarctica?
Yeah. The planes leave from here. Didn't you know that? We actually do. We handle quite a bit of the traffic that goes to.
I bet
Antarctica.
we like this most south place.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
What's the most south place in South America? What's at that tip?
It's called.
Is that Chile?
It's called.
Is that, what country is that?
It's split between Chile and Argentina. I think Chile has the more southern part, and it's called Tierra del Fuego.
Dawn?
It's called Tierra del Fuego.
Sunspear?
Named after the fact that the indigenous peoples would have a fire that they would basically try and always keep alight.
Have you been to Dorado?
Like they would have like. No, I haven't been to Mexico, so.
Oh.
No. But like they're like even if they were like in like the canoe, they'd have like the fire in the boat with them,
So-
which seems like a recipe for disaster.
Can you go from there to
but
Antarctica as well, or what?
One of the guy that did a lot of the more detailed mapping of that part of the world. First of all, that was the captain of the Beagle. That's the ship that Charles Darwin sailed on. Second of all, he was for a while governor of New Zealand. A guy called Robert Fitzroy. He married his cousin.
Good old Fitzy.
So did Charles Darwin. He married his cousin. It just seemed to be the thing to do back then, I guess.
Darwinism for you.
Don't know that that's what Darwinism is, but
It's not,
it's all
but
right.
I wanted to
If
make
that
the
was
connection.
shorthand for marrying your cousin, then it would sound a
I
lot more palatable, wouldn't it?
Wanted to.
All right, here we go.
I was reaching. That's fine. Can you not jinx it like that? Do you want to not say? "Here we
Imagine
go"?
you go and sit down for the premiere of Endgame, and that happens. He keeps pausing. Like, oh, hold on, Iron Man's disconnected. Need to wait for Robert Downey.
Everyone just takes a break and
Yeah.
Thanos just sits down and gets his iPhone out.
I was really annoyed when I saw King Kong, the Peter Jackson one, while I was overseas. And I was really annoyed there was an intermission. I'm like, what a waste of time. Because like I sat through the whole 3 hours of Return of the King without an intermission. I could handle it fine.
Was that only for that place you were at? Because I don't remember there being an intermission when I saw it.
Yeah, no, it wasn't like it wasn't a movie thing. It wasn't to do with King Kong. It's just in the country that I was in. Apparently, it's normal to have an intermission in like longer films. It was like pretty much anything over 2 hours.
Do you want to put that country on blast right now?
Kuwait. I was in Kuwait and I watched King Kong and there was an intermission and I'm still mad about it. The thing is, though, I'm mad about it.
How long was the
I
intermission?
rewatched it at home.
How long?
About 15 minutes. I rewatched it at
quite long.
home, and I paused it about 3 or 4 times to go to the bathroom or like get a snack.
I think
like
10 max. I think 10 is already too much. I think 5
yeah,
is already...
yeah, 5 minutes would be pushing it, right? But it's like, I don't know. I guess it drums up more sales of snacks and stuff, and you can go to the bathroom.
Oh, why don't you have like 10 intermissions then?
Like, I don't know. It's like I've got a terrible bladder. I just accept that I'm going to miss 5 minutes of a movie, right? Like, but the thing is, in every single movie, there's 5 minutes that you can kind of miss, except Infinity War. That movie was just that was a tightly edited film. If you would have gone
tried
away,
to fit more into that
you
film.
would've gone away for 5
realized they
minutes?
couldn't, had to make another movie.
yeah. If you'd gone away for 5 minutes, you would have missed a whole Infinity Stone. That's how that movie. That's how down to the wire that movie is. But most movies, there's a point like halfway through the second act where you're like, I'm not missing anything here. Let's time that bathroom break out now. Let's get that done. It's like taking a pit stop in Formula One. You're like, we got enough room here that we could fit this one in. It's like nothing's really gonna happen in like the 10 seconds.
It's like a 1 second bathroom break.
Yeah. If I could go to the toilet as quickly as Formula One pit stops happen, my life would be a dream. Because I go to the bathroom a lot. I just do. I
Don't say anything. We have Into the Game, but I don't know if it's good. We'll find out if it's good.
Sachok's nearly dead anyway, so there we go. Now if he disconnects, it doesn't matter. But with that, Global Esports are really getting pushed back off this one. Xenofly now as well, going to get picked off. Xeon Flux, the whole lot of them. It's an absolute wash, and this is still with some time on the board for Jupiter.
Yep, that's that 15 seconds. Go take your break. Jupiter right now, actually don't take your break. Jupiter still pushing through. This card distance is not a lot. Look, that's all you got to make, and you can finish this game, force that map 5. You got the ultimates to play with as well, nearly all 6.
They go into overtime though, so this will inevitably come down to one last fight as Jupiter round the final bend. Oh.
And by the way, we haven't seen anyone disconnect. It was a pause. By the way, this is also the time where, because there was like 15 seconds remaining, that kind of works out in a positive way for GE as well, because they don't have the extended spawn times. If they die during the overtime, they respawn slower. So in a strange way, it's kind of like okay for both teams. And so
that is true.
The reset's important.
A useful fringe case. Again,
That's not that fringe.
It's the slightly faster pit stop.
Overtime all the time.
Just keep going to that. You see the Mercedes
I don't
double pit
watch
stop
Formula
in
1.
Shanghai? Well, you should have. It was the 1000th Grand Prix. It's a once in a lifetime. That's actually a once in an ever.
We've had this conversation.
occasion.
I don't watch Formula 1 unless it's in the form of a documentary
You just make jokes
or a
about
movie.
You don't watch Formula 1, but
If it doesn't have Chris Hemsworth in it, I don't watch Formula 1.
Wouldn't that be a stunner, right? Like he decides to give up the Hollywood life and just go straight into like driving race cars. It is another disconnect, though. We are just getting that through, and it is Sachok. So how
Is it
spicy
another
would it be
disconnect?
though if it's another disconnect, but this time it's Samurai D. Like
So
the shoe is back on.
what
the
if
other
it's
foot.
a Formula 1 game, but it's just disconnect? And much like Sachok just swinging his way off the map, the car's just still rolling, but there's no driver in it anymore. Just keeps going.
People who have played like online racing games, is that like how quickly does the car despawn?
I think the car's just like gone. It's just.
But if it's not, if there's a slight delay, it could just drive off the map. So here we go.
We're
Back
just gone.
into it.
We're just gone.
Yeah.
Sachok's not even here.
Car's not stopping. They've got it.
Jupiter's not stopping either. Look at that, nearly 6 ultimates, just like we had before.
So it's going to be such a heartbreaker for Global Esports. They've just got to take this. But look, they've nearly got all of the available ultimates that they could possibly have here. That being said, so did Jupiter. Last fight territory. Here we go.
What if Global Esports wins this? They can. It's still 5 ultimates. They just need a pick.
Sound barrier thrown still available. There we go. Thrown it from Azure.
Oh my goodness!
Is the first casualty. It's a 5 versus 5 though. So Jupiter, there's the sound barrier. It's the last thing they have at their disposal. Stun on Xenofly. Can they get him out of the mech? Jupiter are still in this one. Still a fighting force. Still a wreck trying to deal the damage. As Xenofly goes down. Samurai Dia is going to come back in on Wrecking Ball to get back into the fight quickly enough, but he might not even need to because they've found Xeon Flux. They're looking to get Little Rax now. They're separating out Bubble Kitty. They've got Azure Low as well, and it's all starting to go down now for Global Esports. Jupiter will roll it on through. We do go to that fifth one. I actually think... Actually, no, that wasn't Satchok at the end. That was, I believe that was Little Rex swapped onto the Reinhardt just in case.
It wasn't even Lil Rex, it was Xenofly.
But there you go. We go to the fifth map.
You tried.
It finally gets there. Who cares? What matters is the fifth map.
I also care about the fifth map.
I care about it a lot because, I mean, at this point,
it's going to say it on my tombstone.
At this point, I think we do see Savage get substituted in. At least there is that option there for Global Esports. But you start to wonder, look, he filled the boots without really much issue when we did see him coming in over Satchok, but that was in a very different kind of match against a very different kind of team. And as we say, sometimes that slight little tick of disharmony can be all the difference, especially with how close control went last time between these two
I think
teams.
these teams are kind of neck and neck with the full strength of both sides, and you could argue that if you're making a substitution...
I think you're neck and neck and neck. I think there's an extra neck in there. That's how close it is.
I think if you have, you're at the stage where you have to substitute a sub player for your starting player, that kind of, if it was 50-50, and you got to go to 40-60, that's actually a pretty big difference.
That's the thing, like, no matter how slight a change this is, no matter how good Savage is, no matter how much he can do all the work very functionally, like, again, it's not too huge. It's not like you just play with 5 members. It's a lot better than that, right? But it is still slightly worse in a series where the millimeters have mattered. This really kind of throws things into contention for what will be the 5th map of this first quarterfinal as well. Suddenly Jupiter don't look like underdogs anymore.
Very insane for Jupiter to be able to force this many map 5s, and they actually haven't done that.
Not through the regular season.
The season, it's a playoff thing. I don't know. It's a playoff thing for them where...
It's Jupiter playoffs buff, I don't know.
Maybe
it's Tayo specifically.
Is it a playoffs buff? Because they didn't win the season. So, I mean, it kind of ended at finals. It like ran out at finals. It kind of timed out there.
Tayo buff. It's got to be, right? Like Sunny's back on the team and hey, look at that. We go to map 5. That's just... I don't know.
But what about the debuff on the other team?
The main tank debuff.
Oh.
Well, look, we are going to be going to Nepal.
Like, you got to dodge the Oasis, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's one thing you got to do if you're Global Esports.
No matter what
dodging the Oasis.
No matter what player comes in, you do not go to Oasis. You don't give Jupiter that much leeway. Interestingly enough, though, Nepal is a map where we will probably see a chunk of 3-3 and potentially 3-3 mirror matchups. So this might still just end up favoring Jupiter in a different kind of way.
Context for anyone that has forgotten or hasn't been around in Overwatch for that long, but World Cup 2017, Sydney, you had Team Japan, which is like pretty much all the members of this team anyway. To be fair, that team was slightly different, but point being, took it to Oasis, beat Team Australia there to go to BlizzCon or whatever. And then 2 seasons ago in Contenders, for both the quarterfinal and the semifinals, they won Oasis on that final 3rd round.
And it was
twice
Gardens.
in a row, and I believe it was Gardens.
It was Gardens
twice
both
in a row
times.
to clutch it out and eliminate both. One of the teams was EXL.
One was Xavier.
And the other one was Xavier. So eliminate both those teams from contention of playoffs and finals as well. So absolutely insane clutch map. It's not even like, look, if you're a confident Oasis team, you still like maybe don't pick it because you're like, oh, I don't know. It's
the Oasis buff, but
it is Jupiter.
At any rate, it will not be Oasis. It will be Nepal, but still that reverse sweep opportunity certainly seems to be there. Look, you can point out the disconnects and all that, but at the end of the day, Jupiter were about to get it over the line on Watchpoint Gibraltar anyway. We may have got here regardless, and also we have just had confirmation that Savage will be subbing in for Satchok, so there we go. That could be a difference maker here.
Fun fact for the Contenders trivia, previous name Savage Dab 69. You can take the dab out the Savage, but not the Savage out the dab for this guy. And he's going to need all the help he can get because this is going to be, for the few times he's played this season, dare I say, this is easily the most important map for him.
Just got to dab his way to the semifinals. This is going to be Global Esports actually running the triple DPS Wrecking Ball composition. So Savage is going to go ahead and slip into that role.
Jupiter gonna run back ASAP. They're gonna try and swap as soon as possible. And guess what? So Global Esports, they're trying to now look at spawn, look at who's playing what.
Oh man.
I think, yep, Samurai D goes to Ryan as well. They're both just kind of bluffing each other out. We
Double fake out. This is the same
This is
thing.
ideal for Jupiter.
This time, though, Global Esports are the ones who got back fairly quickly. Jupiter, though, not too far behind themselves. So now we just square up on the point itself. 3-3 versus 3-3.
Tyro's been stunned up. Samurai D taking a lot of damage.
And it's going to get finished off as well. No answer right now on the side of Jupiter. So it's just going to be a lot of their members going down. This is going to give some chunky ult charge to Global Esports.
And what a great start for them as well. They really needed this one, being in the position that they're in. Anakin's going to rally anyway. They really want to double down on this fight for Jupiter.
Yeah, they decide they're not done. Samurai D is kind of coming back in here, but they haven't actually finished off Xenofly just yet. And there's a world where he survives long enough to get back in the mech. Jupiter do at least get out. That's maybe a bit of an overzealous Earth Shadow. One man that they aren't able to follow up on.
And that's a bit of a problem now. Cap did go through, but Jupiter is starting to work towards ultimates. Look at Tayo, look at Savagard, they're about to push in.
Xenofly is only just getting back in the mech here. Tayo's going to happily throw out his grab. The Transcendence is there from Xeon Flux, but Bubble Kitty's going to get charged out and finish off. So Jupiter, they've got a lot to work with still. The grab might be there, but they get the Earth Shatter down. Self-destruct kind of tossed up from Ken Mahororo. Doesn't find anything, but he stays in the fight. So about 30% will be what Global Esports can accrue here before Jupiter punch back and pay it double.
And that's what you can get with just a slightly faster Graviton Surge, which Tayo's been doing somewhat consistently against Lil Rax, who's now significantly behind with the death as well. And Jupiter just had that extra sound barrier and extra Transcendence as well to play with that Global Esports had already used. So now capping back through 31% for Global Esports. Nothing to really write home about. It's not quite big enough of an advantage to really be game ending, and Jupiter should be able to equalize.
Global Esports, that's again a very overzealous Earth Shatter. Bubble Kitty's already picked off. That's 2 for 2 where Savage has just kind of tossed it out willy-nilly. Jupiter are going to be able to scoop up a fight, and now they will surpass Global Esports' earlier percentage on the point.
And this is where now they just get to continue charging ultimates up. Lil Rax is still barely at 49, nearly 50%. Tayo's looking at that full crispy 100. Samurai D nearly on that 100 himself, so all the tanks, all the big members looking to really get the snowball going. And we know what happens when Jupiter starts to snowball. They don't usually stop.
And that's the thing, even the late kill on Xenofly just helps push that advantage. By the time this next fight has played out and come to a close, we'll probably be at about 80+% for Jupiter, and even if they lose it at that point, they'll be happy to walk away.
And now Global Esports just gets so tough. They need to find some answers, they need to find some openings, get a pick somehow, maybe force an area. Xenofly probably has to eat another grab. He's done so before, he's got to do it again.
Jupiter got so much to work with here. There's going to be the grab in, self-destruct layered up. Also self-destruct out of Xenofly, who actually gets something for it, and that means no Transcendence to Savagard here. The shout out from Samurai D is decent. They need to get the kills, though. They don't quite get Little Rax in time. Stun on Savage, but they can't close that one out either. So Jupiter just at a numbers disadvantage here with Global Esports, the one starting to come up in the ultimates. But as
they got a pick.
that, they find Savage. Ken Mahororo largely traded out, though. Jupiter have a sound barrier on Claire that they can commit, and that actually buys time for Savagard to rejoin. So now suddenly it swings back the other way. This grab off to the side, a little bit wonky, but it will get Samurai D. Ken Mahororo remix in the nick of time as they demech Xenofly. This is still Jupiter in the fight. Grab coming up from Tayo, and they've got the kills to back it up as well. That's going to be the last hurrah for Global Esports. Savage again, just a fun little Earth Shatter, you know, just here to have a good time. Jupiter are going to go ahead and pick up the first map of Nepal.
But Jupiter having the best time right now, and this was with Savagard coming in late, the victory Transcendence there to celebrate that round going over. And it was basically a 5v6 for the longest time. The grab on the side was very effective because Savagard was not even close to using Transcendence at that point to save the members. And Jupiter, they can smell it now, they can sniff it, they can almost taste that semi-finals berth to face Talon once again for Global Esports. Backs against the wall. They actually had the match point going into Gibraltar, and now it's Jupiter very much in the lead.
It's not quite done just yet, though. They did get 100-0 back over on Lijiang Tower, and that didn't quite go their way, so they still need to get it over the line. Still some opportunities for Global Esports to come back in this one. They came into this as the higher seed. They came into this slightly favored. Now they are the ones who have to answer back against Jupiter for the first time in the series.
And I wonder what's going to happen here. Do Global Esports also go back to spawn and react? So far, it doesn't seem like they're doing that because they're trying to get some kills, and they do get one.
Whoa.
It will slow down the approach, and what this should happen now is Global Esports should be able to cap the point off it, but Jupiter will ideally have the better composition.
And that's the thing. It's, you know, it's a bit of a bargain that you choose to take here for your Global Esports.
And I think if you're losing in the 3-3 mirror, this is that chance you got to take. You got to find some out here. You have to find some opportunity. We'll see if Savage can give them that with the Wrecking Ball.
And I mean, if it wins on this map as well, it raises questions for Sanctum, but at any rate, we'll see if it actually works out for Global Esports. They do start with that point, but now Jupiter comes in very quickly, picking up Azure. The barrage is there, but somewhat blocked out, still gets a decent bit across the line, but they do lose Bubble Kitty by committing that. Now Savage too low to really stay in the point for much longer. They commit a res onto Azure. They're buying a lot of time here, both in terms of percentage and in terms of actually being able to potentially pick up kills. Little Rax, though, quite low, and this time Jupiter will get the cap.
And this is where GE needs to back off. They need to wait for EMPs. They need to wait for the respawning members. They need to wait to get a pulse bomb kill as well. Valkyrie available. Jupiter have been able to secure, and they need to find this next fight opening. Xenofly going down. It's going to give them that kind of opening they need.
Yeah, buys a good bit of time for Jupiter. Lil Rax as well. He doesn't really want to recall because it just puts him back in the line of fire, but he is able to get out.
You're still just looking at EMP because Xenofly going down is probably one of the worst members at this stage to go down. It just kind of reduces that EMP uptime so significantly, and you really need everything you can get, particularly that one move.
So again, about 30% for Global Esports, and Jupiter are going to surpass that. Xenofly alive. Tayo, though, he's a little low. He's the one in trouble. Nice stick. Ooh, but they've answered it. They're not quite going to get the kill there. So Global Esports a little bit less to work with. EMP is a little bit wonky, and there's going to be the sound barrier to largely answer it. They've got the minefield out as well, but Amakin playing Minesweeper there with the flail. So now sound barrier out from Global Esports as they continue to commit. They double down, but they don't really have much else to work with.
Picks
Just
a
coming
float
up on a barrage now. Savage, he's nearly finished off, but just barely slips out with his life. Xenofly not so lucky. Bubble Kitty too low to commit that rocket barrage just yet. Oh, goes for it anyway. Does find Tayo, but it's only the one, and they're not exactly on the point here.
And by the way, I got to say, this GE composition right now, it's very good when you're defending. It's much worse when you're attacking. And for Jupiter, because they get to sit on the point, because they're collecting points on that point as well, Global Esports, they've run out of abilities, they've run out of ultimates, and they're about to run out of time.
That's the thing, we're starting to push to that 80% mark here. There is a pulse bomb connection from Lil Rax, but he's going to have to back straight
Off
out.
that.
Oh, unfortunately ends up out of it. And now we're pushing that 90% mark. There is little left here for Global. They're still actually in the fight, slowly but surely losing it as Jupiter starting to push us towards that overtime. Slowly but surely, Grav's still available if worse comes to worse. Savage gonna have to force the overtime here. Bubble Kitty's gonna lose his life instantaneously. Can anyone else even touch this? And even then, can they get kills? The answer is looking like a sore but solid no for Global Esports, who have come so very, very far with this new incarnation, with this roster. But Jupiter got a little bit more here. They want to push it further. They want to show that they are back and here to fight for the title that they did not get last year.
And this is going to be 2 seasons in a row now. Global Esports making that playoffs run, but this could be the one that's going to end once again at that quarterfinal.
And the barrage does not do it. The minefield does get one, but it is only one, and it is only Ken Mahororo as Global Esports' last gasp comes up with not enough oxygen. Jupiter going to the semifinals.
And they're going to get that rematch versus Talon as well, that playoffs rematch that they lost to in Season 2 and in the regular season as well. Jupiter unfortunately fell down to Talon, so they're going to have to work hard for that one. But for Global Esports, on the other hand, this is where their playoffs run has ended. And it does sort of show here that 2 to 3, just barely missing out. And you look at all of these maps as well, some very, very good, some very competitive games across the board. Even right in Nepal, you got to say it wasn't exactly one-sided. Yes, it was Jupiter mainly in control, but it could have still gone either way. Global Esports put up a damn good fight.
It's a series that I think you could only describe as harrowing. It was long and difficult and fraught at certain points. Jupiter triumphing here is kind of bittersweet. You can look at some of the factors that came into play, especially on Watchpoint Gibraltar, but at the end of the day, we've always got to say when it matters the most, it's the team that performs that deserves the win. And it's not like Jupiter don't deserve this. They absolutely do. And even when Global Esports were at their regular starting roster at full fighting force, there were still maps that Jupiter was winning. There were still situations they looked like the better team. And then when all the dust is settled, they walk away as the better one. They beat one team that they lost to in the regular season. And now, like you said, they get that rematch of that Season 2 finals that they so famously lost after looking so good for so long. They finally get that rematch. But again, they would need to be beating a team that they have previously lost to if they want to actually get to the finals and win a playoffs.
And let's talk about this Global Esports side, who these players, this team, they actually appeared in Season 2. They were the last place team in their group, if I'm not mistaken. Relegated, did not return for Season 3. It's unlike Jupiter, where you see these two very separate paths now coalescing together, where Jupiter kind of had the celebrated second place finish, this finals appearance, they're missing out of Season 3 coming back in. This Global Esports team, it's the complete opposite. They didn't even qualify back into Season 3, qualify back into this season through Open Div and Trials, got picked up by Global Esports, who had made playoffs previously with the GE Pantheon KR, this time with the Singaporean team. They've come a long way from last place relegation to playoffs and a guarantee into next season. I can't wait to see what this team does in that next season.
And so many teams in the Pacific region have walked that path or something similar, fallen out and made it back in, barely scraped their way forward and started to finally get some success and even have some triumphs. But unfortunately for Global Esports, they won't quite push that one further this time around, but certainly you'd expect that they can come back stronger and maybe push it over the line next season. But that's really just the one quarterfinal so far.
And now we have to wait to see what happens in our second quarterfinal. It'll be Xavier Esports taking on Cyclone Coupling, or what will be a rematch of Week 7. And it's all going to happen after this break, so don't go anywhere. Stick around for more Contenders action right after this.